Okay, thank you, Tamara. We're teaching this class now for, I don't know, at least 7 or 8 years. Uh, I'll introduce myself first. I'm a CPA and attorney in Walnut Creek. Our practice is limited to wills, trust, estates, state planning, estate administration, and income tax. I'm also a CPA. Tamara's my colleague. We've worked together for years. She used to work in the office. Now we're colleagues. And Tamara's a legal document assistant, certified mediator. She's got all kinds of credentials and does a little bit of fiduciary work, works with a lot of attorneys and pro per representatives. And she's located in Napa, American Canyon area. So we put this class together kind of at the request of one of the judges locally, and there was a problem of people turning in accounting, and it's more complicated than the court realizes because of the requirements. I went to accounting school, I'm a CPA, and they never once mentioned this area of accounting. It's nationwide for all fiduciaries. However, California's rules uh, are quite extensive, more than other states. I say that California has legislative diarrhea because of all the requirements that they put on us. And we're operating this accounting requirement that courts demand based on the California probate code. Um, the program today is 3 hours in length. I'll do a short introduction and explain the materials. Tamara will cover inventory and appraisal when you start out, any kind of fiduciary accounting. I will go into the forms, a couple different formats of forms. One is the judicial counsel forms, and then the other is more of an Excel computer generated format. And then the petition that you need to get your work in front of the judge, Tamara will cover in the last hour. I want to explain some of the materials. I'm not going to go into all the materials with you that we have provided for you, um, but they're numbered. So we have handout number one is what we're going to be using here today. It's a handout from the conservators handbook for conservators, and it's available online. I did a search for it this morning, and a lot of people make it available for a fee from the professional fiduciaries. And it's also available at several law libraries and the state courts. So it's about a 80-page, 100-page booklet, covers all kinds of information for guardianships and conservatorships, and the accounting segment we're going to be covering. The next handout I have in the materials or connected materials is we're going to be covering judicial counsel forms, so they're court forms. But oftentimes people will prepare an accounting and they will do it on Excel or some other software. And I've included a sample of that. Mine's kind of rough in terms of this is the main cover sheet summary that comes with all of it. And then what needs to be done is your income and expenses by categories. And that's an example of how that would look. And the same with the expenses. So we're going to be covering the court forms. So if you're used to making Excel spreadsheets, you could just make your own modeled after the court forms we're going to be talking about. And you'll notice that all this is broken out by vendor, subject matter and vendor, which is the court format for turning in for guardianships, conservatorships, probate, and also trust when you're turning accounting into the court. Trusts don't always turn their accounting into courts. Oftentimes, trust administration you're reporting to the beneficiaries, not to the court. There's another format that I just point out. I'm not going to explain it much, and that's chronological. And that's just like a check register, all your income coming in, everything as it comes in, and expenses like it would be in a check register. And that is acceptable for trusts, but not for reporting into the court for any manner. So that was handout number 2. I'm getting confused here because I've got 3 screens, and handout number 2. Okay, so I'm going to get that one down. The next handout that we have available for you is a miscellaneous reference material. I put a lot of links for useful information, summary information from various court websites, sample pleading paper if you don't have it. And then this is unique in that when you're doing an accounting and you need to have a code section and you're trying to break out principal and interest or income, it gives you the code section that requires it. And then we have a rudimentary Excel spreadsheet that we sell for $50, and it's designed to get you started on an accounting. There's an order form. Then the other forms I've included here are from probate examiners. They grade your work like a teacher, but they're really the eyes and ears of the judges. And this is an example of a sheet they use to grade your accounting when it comes in. And you might look at that to see before you turn your accounting in, and some background information. So those are the other materials, but we're going to be working in the conservator handbook for most all of the day. In terms of who can do accounting, anyone can do an accounting. You don't have to be an attorney, an LDA, or a CPA. The requirements are the same. You turn your accounting in, the probate examiners evaluate your work, and you get examiner notes before your next hearing. And if you don't fix them, then that's going to be your more than likely your ruling from the judge when you have your hearing. What we're talking about today is required for probate, guardianship, conservatorships, and it's there's some flexibility on trusts until they start reporting to the court. So at this point, I'd like to turn control of the meeting back to Tamara so that she can go over the inventory and appraisal. So I'm going to make you the host now, Tamara.
Okay.
And I've made the change as soon as it's accepted by the computer. Okay, my screen says Tamara's the host now. I
Yeah,
don't
it
see.
takes a minute. Yeah, it takes a second. I don't.
Yeah, it'll take a while, and then and for the sharing your screen to come up on our monitors.
Still not showing me.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the share screen part of it.
Can you? There we go. Sorry, just came up. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Hopefully, yes.
I'm
No,
not seeing it.
you're not?
No, I'm seeing what says charges on my screen.
Can anybody else see it? Because I'm in share screen.
I'm seeing a Jared
I've seen it.
Roberts State Bar
Yeah.
document.
Form DE 160.
Yep, that's it. Y'all are seeing it. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
for some reason that's not coming up on my camera, but doesn't
Okay,
matter.
well, I'm gonna get going. So, I want to go through the inventory and appraisal. Every conservatorship, guardianship, probate must turn in an inventory and appraisal. The inventory and appraisal is a snapshot. It's a picture. It's a start, stop point, or depending. So, what an inventory and appraisal is, and what must be done, and what you must use to begin your accounting is the inventory and appraisal. Now, if you're just or need to do one, I'm going to go through quickly how to complete this or what I'm looking at. Um, let's say somebody contacts me and I need to do an accounting for a firm, which I have many, and you have to be pretty careful because sometimes preparing accountings, I can get called to court to testify. You need to really be able to explain what you did, how you started, where you gathered the information, blah, blah, blah. It all mostly at the beginning comes from the inventory and appraisal, and then it moves to just bank statements. I myself look at nothing else. I know people want to send me like their check register or this, that, or the other. That's not helpful to me. Nothing on there except for when I get down to, hey, what was check 1, 2, 3, 4? I can look at the register and say, it was to Rex Crandell for attorney fees or whatever it is. So I'm pulling the DE 160. Now, notice these forms. DE means decedent's estate. So that would be for a probate. They would reference that you need to complete a DE 160. If it's a guardianship or a conservatorship, they refer to it as the GC, guardianship, conservatorship 040. So depending if you're probate or if you're guardianship, conservatorship, that's what the examiners, the court, and everybody else will refer to. So this will be a blank form when you get it, or this is what yours would look like if you were to review it before you get into the accounting. Up top here will either be the attorney name, or if you are completing it yourself as a pro per, this would be your name, address, phone number, fax number if you have one. Very few times anymore people put fax numbers. Email address is very important. The email address is what the court uses to communicate with you if they need to, rather than sending slow snail mail. So the email address should be your email address. Attorney for, if you are a pro per, your name would go down here and you would put comma conservator pro per, comma conservator pro se. They use either of those interchangeably. But this line down here will be your name, and you need to indicate to the court by the words pro per or pro se that you are representing yourself. You do not have an attorney. In this line here, this will be the court that you are in. In the sample, it's orange. A couple of you are in Contra Costa. You would put Contra Costa, the address of the courthouse. I know their mailing address is a P.O. Box 911. And then city, state, zip, and the branch could just be probate, or if you know that Contra Costa, the courthouse is Wakefield Taylor. Down here, it says a state of, that doesn't necessarily, it could be the estate of, in this case, we have Jeannie Lowry. Now, these three boxes, one of them needs to be marked unless you're doing a trust. And very rarely would you do the inventory and appraisal for a trust. A trust only goes to court if somebody contests it. So you would typically see one of these three box marked. It's either going to be a decedent, meaning you're in probate, a conservatee, meaning a conservatorship, or minor is marked if it's a guardianship. Over here will be the case number that identifies what case number was given for this estate. Down here, the date of death for the decedent or appointment of guardian and conservator. So let's take date of death. Pretty simple right there. If you mark this box decedent, this will be the date of death. This is really important, and I'll get into why once we get further down into the form. Now, if it's a conservatorship or a guardianship, this date right here will be date of letters. Now, I believe I possibly could have said in prior recordings that this would be date of order by the court. That would be incorrect. This is the date of letters. Because if you look at your probate order, it will say this is not effective till letters. So this will be your date of letters. Again, very important. Couple reasons. When this goes to when or if this goes to a probate referee to value, the probate referee needs to know what date they are valuing the property at, right? So if it's a house, and I'm stating right here, let's say this was a decedent. I'm stating right here that the decedent died on March 8, 2012. The probate referee will give me the value of the house as of 3 8 2012. He or she will not give me the value as of today. It will be the value as of date of death. If it's a conservatorship or guardianship, this date is the date you were appointed letters. So if the conservatorship, typically in a conservatorship and guardianship, your accounting is due after the first year of appointment, and then all subsequent accountings are due every 2 years after the first year is turned in. So this inventory and appraisal, though, there's no guessing at the date. It's either the date of death or the date you were originally appointed, and an inventory and appraisal is only done one time unless, for instance, you wish to sell the conservatee's house. You have to get court approval, of course, but you would have to do a second one for the conservatee, and then you would mark this box reappraisal for sale, and then the probate referee would value the assets as of today's date. This date is the date you will start your accounting. So this date is very important because it tells a whole story. One, it's the date they either died, or it's the date you were appointed, and you are responsible for every dollar, every penny from that day going forward. Now, these boxes right here, what I'm looking for when I'm preparing an accounting is I'm looking for this to say final. A lot of times I will get these, and law firms or people do a couple of partials first, which is perfectly okay. But I know when I see this box marked partial, I know I don't have everything. So I'm looking for something to say final. I may have 3 or 4 that say partial, and then I see a final, and then I've got to lump them all together. So partial means that you're only having, a lot of times, let's just say, why would I have only a partial? A lot of times, especially law firms, they like to hurry up and get the probate referee to value assets because they take the longest. So if there's a house, if there's cars, if there's things that go on attachment 2, that's valued by the probate referee. They'll quickly throw out a partial inventory and appraisal because a probate referee takes 4 to 6 weeks to value the property, and you want to get that going as soon as possible. And then when they issue a final, they'll only issue attachment 1, which is cash, and that's signed off by you, so it takes 5 minutes, right? It's so that's the reason you may see partials. You may not. A lot of people just do a final, meaning I know up front what all my assets are. I don't have to wait. A lot of times with a partial, like say for instance, you get your letters and the banks, you're going to the banks to try and figure out how much balance is in, like say they have 5 different banks, Wells Fargo, Travis Credit Union, Bank of America, there's Charles Schwab's, there's a bunch, and you've got to put that together. Some people will say, okay, I know right now I have 3 of my 5 banks. I know their balance. I'm just going to do a partial in some way. That's totally up to you how it's done. But you really want to make sure you're looking at the final inventory and appraisal, or at least a final has been done before you start your accounting. So corrected means you turned in an inventory and appraisal, and for some reason you have something wrong on it. So you would mark corrected, and you're only going to indicate what you're correcting. Reappraisal for sale, the only time you'll see that box marked is if it was a conservatorship or a guardianship, you need to, or it's a probate case, basically, that has limited authority, which means you need the court's approval to conduct the sale of the home. And it's been over 1 year since it's been appraised. So again, you'll mark this box, but that's not often. Supplemental means you turned in a final, and then after you turned in the final, you discovered, oh shoot, I found one more bank account. What do I do? How do I tell the court I've already turned in a final inventory and appraisal? Well, you would do another one, mark as supplemental, and then that tells the court, hey, I forgot this one. It should be added in, and so you're going to mark it supplemental. Are there any questions on this first half? Because I'm going to get going a little bit faster. Rex took some of my time, so I only got 30 minutes. Are there any questions?
No.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's go to this section where it says appraisals. You have 2 different attachments you need. We're going to start with attachment 1. As you can tell, this says right here, this is valued by the representative, which is you, or if it's a probate, you're the administrator, or you could be the executor, or you could be the special administrator. Like, you can hold a lot of hats there. Or it's a guardian if it's a minor, or a conservator if it's a conservatee. So this is where you yourself will be the one who values assets. On attachment 1, we're going to go through what is attachment 1 and what does it look like. So I'm going to switch screens, and this will be an attachment 1. As you notice, it's going to be called the DE 161, which is just 1 number more than the DE 160 page, which was the cover page, or it could be the GC 041. You have the estate name. Remember, you're going to take that information from right here, and the case number. You will need to mark this attachment 1 and how many pages it is. We are going to go through what assets you would mark on attachment 1. Remember, attachment 1 can only be cash. No other thing. Don't ask me if anything else goes. This is just cash. Nothing else. You cannot value anything else. So let me give you examples of some things you may see on an attachment one. That doesn't mean in your case you're going to have these. I'm just showing you examples of various attachment one assets. So a lot of times with a conservatorship, especially if they're elderly people, they always have cash in their wallet. You are responsible for going into their wallet and looking if they have cash on them. Also, if y'all know, which I'm sure some of you do, and you have elderly parents, I do, or did, they hide cash everywhere. Envelopes in the underwear drawer, envelopes in the nylon drawer, envelopes in the closet. My dad would keep old coffee cans full of pennies or coins, or it could be those plastic water, blue-ish colored water jugs, things like that. That is called cash. And when you do find they do have cash on them, you will want to report the amount of cash they had. In our case, I won't necessarily put where I found the cash because this is public information. Remember, anybody can order this information, and I don't want people to know my conservatee, who's vulnerable at times, has cash on them. That's just not necessary. So I will only put cash. I never indicate where it's found. I will indicate the amount and put that here. This is very important. Balance in the checking account. Please do not ever indicate the entire checking account. You only need to indicate the last 4 or 5 digits of the account number. And in fact, if you do indicate the entire account number, the court is going to come back to you and give you a tiny smack on your wrist stating you've just now made that checking account vulnerable to spam and people that are doing, let's say, dirty, nasty things. They're scammers. And they're going to try and do something because they have all the information they need about the bank account number. Please do not ever do that. You're risking having to close it all down, get a new account, and all the hassle. Plus, the court does not like you giving personal information about the conservatee. So, last 4 or 5 digits. I do not ever indicate the address of the bank, especially if it's something like Wells Fargo, Bank of America. Who knows where the account was originally opened? I will only put balance in checking account 1234 and what the balance is. What is very important, and I see, let's say 8 times out of the 10 that I do accountings for clients and law firms, is this is an incorrect balance. So you have to remember that you indicated this date right here. Now, this is in the middle of a bank statement. And say the bank statement goes from March 1st to March 31st, right? You're like, how in the heck would I know what the balance is on March 8th, right? What you're going to do is look at the bank statement. A lot of bank statements now will give a running balance, like either daily or every time a transaction goes through. You will want to make sure you go through the bank statement and find out what is the balance on March 8th, no other day. March 8th is the date you want the balance, not March 1st, not March 31st, but March 8th. So this screws a lot of people up in that when I get an accounting and I'm ready to start it, I can't even start the accounting because the first thing I'm looking at is this date. I'm going to the bank statement. I'm looking at this date and I'm making sure that this balance indicated here is exactly what the bank statement says. If it does not, I do not move forward. There's nothing for me to do. I've got to stop right there, I've got to tell the person you have to do a corrected inventory and appraisal, turn it in, and put the proper balance on the date you indicate right here. So that's the number one error in completing an accounting that I see. Number one error. So let's keep going on. I'm not switching screens here. Balance in savings account. Again, do not put the full account number, 1234, or only 4 digits. I do not put the name and address of where the bank is located, but I will put balance in Wells Fargo checking account 1234. And again, this balance needs to be the date of March 8th. Now, a CD. CD is a little bit harder sometimes depending on who's holding the CD, whether it's a bank holding the CD or it's like an annuity broker like Charles Schwab or something of that nature. You need to find out, one, I'll put the deposit number. Sometimes I don't even know that. I do not put the addresses. I don't put in the name as joint tenants, nothing like that. I will just put CD account number 1234, or whatever the number is, and the amount of the CD. And it's not the amount really of the CD on this date, because sometimes you'll see on statements, they'll indicate what they'll include the interest you will get up when the CD expires. So say it's a 6-month CD, it will say the interest that you'll be paid, or the CD will be worth $10,789 at the 6 month when it matures. You don't really want that. You want the date here or when they purchase the CD, the original amount. So I'll do the 10K. Now, you won't see this as often as you used to because pension checks and Social Security checks and things of that nature are now auto pays or auto deposits. So very seldom do I see any more uncashed checks. Your responsibility, once the court grants you the responsibility, is to go to the conservatee's home or the guardianship minor. You would know a little bit more because they're underage children. You're to go through mail and see if there's any mail there. So a lot of times, or in this instance, there was an uncashed pension check on March 8th because it probably mailed on March 1st or March 3rd. And so it arrived right before the person got appointed in this instance. So they went in the house, found there's an uncashed check. They want to indicate to the court that they know of it, they have it, they will deposit it, but they're going to go ahead and include it as an asset on the date that they were appointed. Same thing with Social Security. Again, this is usually auto paid. So very seldom, I don't think, it's been years before I've seen an uncashed check put on an inventory and appraisal. But you'll want to indicate the amount of the uncashed check. And in some cases, which I don't see this often anymore either, is dividend checks. So at a certain point, for some annuities, stock accounts, so on and so forth, at some point, when people reach a certain age, they have a certain distribution requirement that they have to have. So dividend checks are paid out. So it would either be a deposit or a check. And in other instances where there's an annuity account, typically you'll see dividends reinvested. So what will happen is on a statement, you'll see you were paid dividends, but the brokerage firm took those dividends and reinvested them in other stocks. So, or that stock, they just bought more. So you really won't see an uncashed dividend check much. After I've written everything down that is cash, again, you may see them, or you may have where there is zero cash and all you would write here is zero and put zero here, put zero down here in your total, and you have no cash. It's not uncommon at all. You may only have one account. You may have one checking savings account. This is a variety of instances that you could have on here. You may not have any of them. So I got one more thing and then I'll stop for questions. So once you've totaled all of your cash assets, see my total here, it's 57,844.59. I'm going to take that number. I'm going to go back to my inventory and appraisal, and that's what I'm going to indicate here. Are there any questions on anything I just said at that point?
I have two questions.
Yes.
So my first question is just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So if March 8th was the date of an appointment and you looked at the statement from the bank, is it at the end of the day, March 8th? So if there's transaction happening on March 8th?
End of day, honey. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
End of day, hun.
Okay.
And sometimes realize if the bank isn't good, some are better than others, but they're getting better later years. Like they're kind of catching on where they'll run a daily total on the right side, but a lot of them didn't used to. So what I'd have to do is say the bank statement starts on March 1st. I would have to look, do I have any deposits before March 8th? If no, I'm not adding anything. Do I have any checks that cashed before March 8th? And maybe I'll deduct expenses and I have to come up with the balance myself. So in those situations, that's what you would do. You have to take, okay, March 1st, it says 5,000. I have $1,000 deposit, so that makes me at 6, but I have one check that cleared before that's 500, right? So I'm 5,500 in my balance. So sometimes you may have to figure that out on your own.
Mm-hmm. And then my second question is, I have helped with accounting.
Okay.
And then I came across it was a probate, and then the referee gave an amount, but he or she must have missed like a fee from the bank. Because like, for example, let's say the date was March 8th, the fee was charged like March 6th, but because it was on another page, he or she missed it. So the starting balance was off by like $12. So in
Has
a
to be
probate, do you
corrected.
have to go back and tell them it has to be corrected?
Yes.
Okay.
But first of all, let me clarify. A probate referee does not value cash. So in this instance, that would have been the client or whoever prepared the inventory and appraisal. Because the probate referee cannot value cash. They cannot even look at your bank statement. It's none of your business, or their business. So in your situation, though, you have to mark it corrected. And you have to go back and provide the proper balance on the proper date, or your accounting won't balance, honey.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else real quick? Ralph has his hand up.
Yes.
I see you.
Oh, yes.
And Betty, I'll get to you in 1 second, sweetheart.
Okay, thank you.
Ralph, go ahead, hun. You're muted.
Probate I'm not the executor.
Okay.
And so the executor basically told me there's no personal property, no cash. So can I just go put zero and be done with it?
You absolutely put zero and be done with it, hun. You're in the best case scenario right there.
Okay.
Betty, honey, your
Yes.
turn.
Yes. I wanted some clarification on the letter.
Okay.
Who gives the letter? Does the court gives the letter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So after your hearing in court, they will sign a GC, is it 340 for a conservatorship guardianship? That's the order, or it's 240. I'm one of those two. And then for a probate, it's the DE 140. That's the order. Once the order is done, if the judge says you have to get a bond, then you go get a bond and then you turn in the letters, which is the DE 150. And I want to say for guardianship conservatorship, it's 350, but don't quote me there. But I want to say that's what it is. And that is letters. Letters gives you the authority to walk into any bank and say, I need bank statements. I now control the bank account, blah, 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 blah. It's your permission to do anything and everything.
Okay. Now the next one also, what about filing income tax that they have not filed and they're in the home where usually they file income tax?
Honey,
So,
that's a totally different thing, and that's done
okay.
through the probate administration. That
Okay.
has nothing to do with your accounting, sweetheart.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Ralph, is your hand up from before?
Yeah.
You have a new
So I have
question.
one more question. I might be ahead on your schedules, but I did this sheet unclaimed property claim,
Yeah.
and I found checks that that the
Correct.
executor is now going to collect the cash, but I have no idea what the date of the check is. Should I show that as income or an asset at the beginning?
It's an asset at the beginning. You're going to have to do a supplemental inventory and appraisal because actually that was an asset at the date of death. Whether you had it in a bank or not has no bearing whatsoever. You would just indicate on your attachment 1, state of California, unclaimed property, and what the balance is.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll do a supplemental, honey.
I have a question.
Yes, honey.
The inventory and appraisal that was done by the conservator for my mom does not include an attachment 1 and shows 0 for number 1 on the form.
Okay. It should have had an attachment 1, and what it would have looked like was it would say cash and 0 and 0, but if they didn't have it, as long as they indicated here there was 0 cash, then that's okay. But if you believe there was cash in a bank account somewhere, then that's your cue that something is not proper. And so if you wanted to, you could write an objection to the accounting, somewhat of a format that is something like, I believe that there was a checking account at Wells Fargo Bank that's not indicated on my inventory and appraisal, or whatever you believe in your knowledge, that's what you need to indicate to the court, and you wish just clarification.
What if there is a trust and all of the accounts are in a trust, but they still are my mom's assets?
Trust is totally different, and no, trust assets do not go into a conservatorship. They remain under the control of the trustee and have nothing to do with the conservatorship, honey. That's a totally separate thing.
So if my mom's assets are in a trust,
right,
and they're being drawn and used for her expenses, it should say 0 there?
Yes and no. What they really technically should have done is, but they didn't, and the court allowed it, so the court makes the final decision, definitely not me, is they really should have bounced a little bit of money out, did a conservatorship account basically, and accounted for it that way. But they're correct. If the trust uses money to pay for expenses, you're not going to see a whole lot on your accounting, because the trust must do an accounting based on whatever the trust says and when an accounting is due. So you would see it at a different place, not on this.
So the trust would not show up as an asset for the conservatee, even though it's their trust and they're the settler.
Correct. Correct. The court, remember, whatever you indicate on here is what the court takes control of. The court cannot take control of trust assets because that control is already under the provisions of the trustee or the successor trustee. So the court is not involved and cannot handle those assets. The only assets they can handle would be anything outside of the trust.
What if the trustee is also the conservator?
Same thing, honey. You cannot mix trust assets with conservative assets.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move on to attachment 2 because I only have really 8 minutes and I won't finish in 8 minutes. But we're going to go attachment 2, probate referee. So a lot of people ask, how do I know who the probate referee is? Well, if it's a decedent's estate, on the DE 140, which is the order for probate, the court will put the probate referee at the very bottom right before they sign their name on the right-hand side of the form. They will indicate who the probate referee is. On the GC 340, I want to say, I should look it up before I start saying this. It's the probate referee is given at the very top of the form, different place. But you will see a probate referee was appointed. If you don't see a probate referee appointed on the account, you need to petition the court to ask for a court-appointed probate referee, and you have to fill out specific forms, and then the judge will issue a probate referee to you. That's who you send this form to. So what will a probate referee value, or what's their responsibility, or what do you fill out before you send this to the probate referee, which is attachment 2? So same form number as attachment 1, but instead of putting 1 here, you're going to put attachment 2. Number of pages. Sometimes these pages, this gets really ugly when you have a bunch of stock accounts. It's very difficult to determine what the assets are, or like I did one not that long ago where I had, I think, 6 or 7 pages of, they had bonds. So they had 6 or 7 pages of bonds. You could imagine, I think it was that my page held 40 bonds on a page, and I had like 5 or 6 pages. It was so daunting. I was exhausted after just entering that. But anything on attachment 2 is anything non-cash. So in this instance, we have real property, we have a vacation home, we have furniture and fixtures. You're not going to get a whole lot off furniture and fixtures, but we have it here anyway. Shares, I'll go through because this is not proper in the documentation itself. But for real property, so I'm able to run deeds, I'm able to see what the legal description is, so on and so forth. A lot of you may not have that information. You're going to put as much information as you can. So I usually also indicate, do they own it 100%? Do they own it 50%? Do they own it a third? Do they own it 25%? What percentage do they own of this real property? I indicate that for the probate referee. So we have real property in the city of Newport Beach, County of Orange, state of California, and it's described with a legal description. It is described with the legal description as you see here, and it's commonly known as this address. And the APN number is this. you will know what city and state and county the property is in. You should know the common or the address of the property. APN number, you may or may not know. It's okay if you don't. But look here, you will indicate in the value area, the value will be 0 because you're not going to put a value there. The probate referee will put a value there. So item number 2, I had a vacation home, same instance. Item 3, furniture and fixtures. You're going to get very little on furniture and fixtures, so don't expect a whole lot. Now, if in your furniture and fixtures you have a baby grand piano, or you have a very expensive armoire, or you have something that's worth a whole lot, that you don't really want lumped into household furniture, you need to separate that and do not include it in your lumping of household furniture, okay? Again, leave the value 0. That's not for you to appraise, it's for the probate referee. Shares of safeguard investment mutual funds. Most of the time, mutual funds, you won't have all the shares in one exact mutual fund. So if your total shares are 1425, and let's say 100 of it is Apple and 1,000 of it's Microsoft, and then you have other little tiny miscellaneous things, you cannot just put the total shares in the safeguard mutual fund. You need to indicate 1,000 shares in Apple or Microsoft, and each one separately. So what I'll state is 1425 Apple shares in safeguard, and then I'll keep listing them down in a row. Do not lump them, because you can't. You really need to determine how many shares you have in Charles Schwab of each mutual fund. Again, you do not indicate value. Probate referee does that. In this case, you are not allowed, even though the example shows it, to say 700 US savings bonds, Series EE, and when they were issued. You have to list each one separately. And again, remember I said God, the bonds went on forever. And each little line item had a different series number, and I was getting cross-eyed by the time I tried to end this. So I would list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, each separately. Do not lump them together. Okay, lastly, I've also indicated a diamond ring, 2 carat. Okay, some of you, well, I will be honest with you. I don't know if I could tell a 2 carat from a 3 carat, from a 1.5 carat, from a 1.75 carat. I'm not into diamond and wedding rings and what they look like or their size. I wouldn't have a clue. I'm just being honest. So I'd have a hard time with this, but it's very important you indicate, if that's what they have, that you've seen it, you've acknowledged it, and you now keep it in a safe place if they are no longer wearing it. I'm going to give you a really quick example on why that's important. I only have 1 minute, but I'm going to finish this up quickly. So I had a probate case, where the woman had a 2 carat and a 4 carat separately. The 2 carat, I think, was the one she got when she first got married. Later on, husband bought her a 4 carat. So the administrator was one of the daughters, and the woman who passed away, she had 2 daughters. One of the daughters was the administrator, and one of in the will for the probate, the will had stated that one of the grandchildren got the 4 carat and the other grandson got the 2 carat. Perfectly fine. And both were listed, so perfectly fine. The administrator somehow, some way, we don't know if it was on purpose or not, gave her son the 4 carat, although he was really only supposed to get the 2, and then gave the nephew of hers the 2 carat when he was supposed to get a 4. Well, her son, where she gave the bigger ring to, proposed, gave it to a woman. Yeah, I think you can all tell where the story's going. By the time the nephew got his and said, yeah, this isn't the right ring, I swear I was supposed to get a different one, realized what happened. You can imagine that one son had to go to his wife and say, I need that back. It's not yours. It wasn't even mine. There was a mistake, so on and so forth. So now instead of a 4 carat, his fiance or maybe wife at the time is now only getting a 2, and it's embarrassing. It's wild. I don't even know how that came about, but I would never want to be in that situation. But it's very important for you to indicate, because say, for instance, I say there was only a 2 carat ring and you're a beneficiary, you receive this inventory and appraisal and you go, wait a minute, I know she had more than that, or I know it was bigger than that. You want to make that known right then and there. You want to ask questions. Hold off, wait a minute. That's not what I know she had, or the ring I thought was always bigger, or something like that. You want to hold the person who's giving this inventory and appraisal accountable. Or, like, say, there's a storage unit somewhere. Hey, why didn't you indicate the storage unit on the inventory and appraisal? Maybe there's a boat somewhere and you're looking, going, hey, I don't see a boat on here. As a beneficiary, it's really important that you go through this information and say, okay, what are they recording? This example doesn't show a car. On a car, you want the year, make, mileage of the vehicle, condition of the vehicle. Is it running? Is it not running? Does it have an engine? Does it not have an engine? Are all the tires gone? Are the tires working? Or are the tires good? So on and so forth. You want to indicate that so the probate referee gives the proper value and you have all your assets that you'll carry forward to your accounting. Now, once you get to the bottom and you've listed all your assets, you will not provide a total right here. You will leave it blank. You will come back to this page. You will leave this blank. The probate referee is going to get the forms. They will complete attachment 2 and put a value. They will also put a value here, and then they typically will total it. And I've only got a few minutes. I still need to go through the form. So down here, you're going to either indicate this is all of the assets or only a portion. If this marked final, it's all the assets. If it's only marked partial, it would indicate a portion of the assets. Down here would be if no probate referee was required. So say, for instance, there's no house, there's no car, there's no attachment to property, then you might not have a probate referee. You would mark this 0, you'd say attachment 2, you would say 0 here, mark it 0, and then you would only have a cash total, and then you would bring the total down. So it's really going to be dependent on, was there a probate referee or not? If a probate referee was assigned to you, you will mark this box and put what date they were assigned to you. We get down to the property tax certificate. If you have real property, you're always going to mark this box indicating you told the assessor that you are now, and the recorder, you are now in charge of property taxes. Or if there was no real property, you would mark A and say there's no real property. Coming down, you need to date it, you would put your name here, and you will sign it. If this is going to the probate referee, look at the markings here. Do not sign it until you get it back from the probate referee. Really important you don't sign it before. Okay, getting down to statement of bond, I'm 5 minutes over. Getting to statement of bond, either bond is going to be waived, and you will know that because the court will tell you no bond is required. You would mark this box on this inventory and appraisal. If bond was filed, so the court states you have to pay a $20,000 bond, you would indicate 20,000 here. Real quickly, and I may ask for answers, so somebody be ready to answer me. If this box is marked $20,000 as a bond, and you're showing cash of $57,844.59, would you mark this box sufficient, or would you mark this box insufficient? That's a question. Quick. Somebody answer? Oh, y'all are too shy. You would mark insufficient because your bond does not cover the amount of your cash. So if this says $20,000 bond and you have $57,000 in cash, your bond is insufficient. You don't have enough money to cover your cash. In that case, it really is your responsibility to increase your bond based on the dollar amount of your cash. But if you believe that the mortgage hasn't been paid in 6 months and you're going to take a lot of this cash now that you've been appointed and you're going to deplete it real quickly by paying 6 months worth of mortgage payments that haven't been paid, then you're still going to mark this insufficient, but you don't have to worry about increasing your bond because this balance is going to go below anyway real quick. Okay, this box would be marked if it's a guardianship case and the court has ordered you to put funds in a blocked account. You will indicate the amount of money that's in the blocked account and where it's located. So Wells Fargo Bank, where Bank of America, Travis Credit Union, I could come Charles Schwab, wherever it is. Make sure you indicate that here. You're going to date it and you're going to put your name here. This is only different in our example because this is done by an attorney. So your name will go here and here. You must date in both places and you will sign, but not until it comes back from the probate referee. There's only one more page that's attached to this form, and it is the second page of the inventory and appraisal. This is only completed by the probate referee. They will indicate what their fees are they're charging for the inventory and appraisal. If they have any expenses like mileage, bridge toll, anything of that nature, they'll total it up. They will date it. They will print their name, they will sign your name, and they will return the whole package, including attachment 1 and attachment 2, back to you, and then you will file that with the court. But the accuracy of this inventory and appraisal is what is going to make or break your accounting and the information you must use to start your accounting. Any quick questions before I release it to Rex? Y'all are too easy for me today. All right, I'm going to get started. I'm going to remove. I will come back after Rex does the accounting. And so you will see me again. Rex, I switched it over to you.
It says I'm the host. Let me get my screen set up. I have 3 screens, and then when they change screens, it's just like huge windows. Okay, so now I got to get my screen shared.
Go to the bottom where it says share.
Yeah, I got share. The trouble is I got huge screens. That looks like now, does it say charges on everyone's screen? No? Yes?
I only see you.
Yeah, I only
Only-
see you and the
Okay,
camera,
yeah, these,
which is great, which is great.
Remove, share is there. Oh, here we go. That might be better.
Yep.
Okay, so we've handed the baton for the next hour on the financial part and the forms and things. Before we leave the wedding ring thing, I wanted to let you know, one thing when you're doing the personal property, you might want to take photos of everything. So that becomes part of your documentation. And if there's any questions about wedding rings or things, there's a company, Estate Consignments, at 1500 Contra Costa Boulevard in Pleasant Hill that will appraise things. Their phone is 925-682-6800. They can take gold, they can take necklaces, bracelets, anything. They've got a gold expert on staff. They can give you values. They may even give you purchase price. Anyway, just that's my contribution to the wedding and jewelry. Sometimes jewelry can have quite a lot of value. Okay, in the court accounting, this form is the most important form in the whole process. It's called the Summary of Accounts. It's Judicial Council Form GC 400 Sum, guardianship or conservatorships, 400 Sum. And it shows kind of a snapshot of everything that happened during that accounting period. And we're going to go through it in detail. The form is set up from Judicial Council approves this form. The California Supreme Court has directly below it the Judicial Council. Directly below that is the Administrative Office of the court. And they approve these forms. And in this case, it says adopted for mandatory use, which means it shall be on every accounting that you turn into the court. There are other forms we're going to be covering today, and they're official forms, but they're not mandatory. You can bounce off them into Excel, but the GC 400 sum is required. And it's required for probate, guardianships, and conservatorships, including trusts when the trusts are before the court. So like most forms, you set it up, whether it's guardianship, conservator. If you're doing a probate, you just write probate and the name of the case number, and then some other formatting of the form. And as we go through the material, I've added page numbers in the lower left. There's 4 digits and then 21. This is page 21. If you printed out the material, you might want to put a yellow tab on it because we're going to be flipping into other forms and constantly coming back here to the GC 400 sum. The top of the form says, what account are you doing? So when you get your letters of administration, you have 90 days to turn in your inventory and appraisal. And then after the first year, then your first accounting is due. And then it will be due in the future every other year. So the years for accounting are year 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And in this case, we're saying it's the first accounting. It's not the final. And it's an interim from the days from the date you got your letters of administration till 1 year from that point. Frequently, we'll see them 2 years, sometimes 3 years in duration that have all the accounting within that time frame. So the way the form is set up, let me back out of this a little bit. It is set up where the top part says charges, the bottom part says credits. And coming from an accounting and tax background, we do a lot of income tax. The words that they used are just weird, like Old English or something. To me, it should be assets and income, disbursements and ending balance. But we have the term charges, and I like that charged with responsibility. So when you're a fiduciary, you're charged with personal liability for everything in your purview that you have control over, and that would be your beginning assets on hand and everything that comes thereafter. So you can look at the word charges, responsibility, or income. The other part of this form, the outbound, is the credits. And the credits, you think, oh, I'll get a credit on my account. Well, in this case, you have responsibility for all this money, the 1.3 million. If any of it's gone, your bond should take over for you if there's some problem. Usually we see the problems in defalcations or embezzlement, and that's why the bonds are required. But when you have it reported here and approved by the court, credit means you're discharged of your responsibility. So you're no longer liable for it. And then the form is set up where you're beginning assets from your inventory and appraisal, and then you'll value the assets at the end. So we're going to go through this in detail. And if you look at these line items, they're kind of like website links. So this 19,100 might be linked to 4, 5, 6 different forms or pages, and then it comes back here as the total. So as you're starting to prepare this, you start out with your beginning inventory and appraisal that Tamara just went over and explained, and you copy the numbers from that point. There's a term used in fiduciary accounting called carry value. Carry value is the market value at the date you received your letters or when the asset was acquired. And if you are familiar with income tax, carry value is synonymous with the term basis. So like a basis for rental property divided between land and building. So carry value is going to be with your accounting, your asset list until the asset disappears. And what I recommend on your list of assets is that when give your every asset a line number, and then keep that line number, asset number 27. Never use that number again. If the asset is sold, leave that number blank, because the courts go from year to year looking at what happened during an account, and it's hard for them to track assets unless the asset number remains the same over multiple accounting periods. Okay, so the first 3 lines are copy job from your accounting. Then we have all these schedules we're going to go through, and the court requests that if you have nothing happening in additional property receipt, put a 0, because that's an affirmative statement. A blank is, well, maybe I answered it, maybe I forgot, I'm not sure. So it takes out that ambiguity. So we're going to be going through these in detail, what receipts came in during the year, what gains of sale of things, other charges, which end up being on the income side, and then income from a trade or business. If the estate or trust has a business, fortunately for the person reporting to the court, they can use the accountant's income statement and not go through every one of the thousands of transactions. And you can just use that net income. I don't see that very often, but that's how it works. So you've got beginning assets, everything that came in, and total. Then on the outbound, you've got the disbursements and all the subschedules. And then at the end of the account period, here we're saying March 7th, what is the value of the cash balances and the non-cash assets, and total property at the end of the account period. So what has to happen is the line 7 total charges must equal line 14 total credits. If it doesn't, don't bother turning your accounting in. It'll never get approved. In income tax, fortunately, you take the nearest dollar and round off the pennies. Pennies have no value anymore. So for tax, we just ignore them. But for courts, they're more anal retentive, and they want everything to the penny all the way through. One thing I recommend when you're doing all your accounting is double check your totals. Every time you do a total, I use an adding machine with a tape. I check the tape. Some people are doing it on screen. You can check your sequence of numbers. And the reason why I say every time you add a total of numbers, check it again, because it's extremely time consuming to try to find errors in the accounting. It can take hours. So the thoroughness and detail as you're going through really helps. Other factors to consider in the lower right of the forms, all the different forms we're going to talk about today, they give a probate code section. And I kind of look at that as a breadcrumb trail or a linkage for citation. If you have a question about this form, say, what in the heck are they talking about? You can go to Probate Code Section 1060. You can go to the California Rules of Court 7.575 to see what the statute would cause this form to come out the way it did. Okay, so now we're going to get into the details, and like I say, mark this page because we're coming back a lot. In the beginning, the first thing you have is just like what Tamara had gone over on the inventory and appraisal, it's copy job, cash on hand. Same thing, bank accounts, last 4 digits of the account numbers, list them all, and then the total of the cash accounts. And it's the same numbers as your beginning inventory and appraisal. Then non-cash assets, there again, this is a copy job from the inventory and appraisal. You put the carry value for each of them in the right column. And then on your first account, you ignore this column that says estimated market value. When you got to the probate referee valued your assets, they were at market value. So this column's blank the first time around. And then in the future, at the end of the account period, even the first account, when we get to the ending numbers, you do estimate the market value. So don't get too stressed out about the numbers. If there's a house, just list the address in Zillow, try to come up with a value and just put that number in. Same thing with the stockbroker accounts. List the market value at whatever time the beginning and or ending of the account time period. I want to remind you that this class is participative. If you have something you want to say, don't be bashful. We're not trying to keep people from talking here. So if I say something that doesn't make sense, just say, hey, I don't get it. That doesn't make sense. And it won't offend me at all. Okay. I point out other things as I go along that might be helpful. We're talking about value of property in the inventory and appraisal. I point out that there's a probate referee's guide on valuing assets, and I found this helpful at times if I'm trying to determine a value of the assets. It's free online. Another time I've run across cases where there's husband and wife. One of the spouses become incapacitated, say with Alzheimer's or something. They have an attorney, and then they say, okay, we need a conservatorship. And then they think that the court makes them do accounting. And the problem there is that if the couple has been married for 50 years, all of their assets are community property. And if one gets a conservatorship, they don't need to do an accounting because the other community property owner has full control to manage. So therefore, you're exempt from doing court accounting on community property assets of a couple. And that's probate code section 3051. Okay, now I'm on page 22. This is not a required form. It makes sense for me because it's a summary page to try to pull numbers together before we go to the cap sheet, the GC 400 sum. And so there may be 6 pages of dividends and put the total, several pages of rents. And then you have the total amount that came in during the period and the total money going out. It's not required. I find it to be somewhat helpful. So we're going to be going through the different types of income that you'll be reporting. In this case, dividends from investments. And you have to list every dividend. So you take the stockbroker report and you list every dividend. So if you've got some funds in Safeguard, you list all the dividends. You've got Merrill Lynch, you list all the dividends, item by item. Some items that are a little bit confusing, these are dividends, so it's called a receipt. But when you get capital gains distributions, they're not considered income. Capital gains distributions go into the principal of the assets that end up on the GC 400 sum line 2 if you run across those items. So dividends, another item here is receipts of interest, income, list the name of the institution. We usually put XXX and then the last 4 digits of the account number, list the total. We're in the A series of forms, page A, and that has to do tying back again to the GC 400 sum. These are subschedules. We're not going to cover them all, fortunately, but there are 48 different forms and schedules for court accounting that is judicial counsel. You don't need them. If you were talking about a form here that you don't have any transactions, leave it out. You don't need it. Back on the dividends, if you get a large stock portfolio, there's a thing called the dividend reinvestment program, and we abbreviate the initials DRIP, dividend reinvestment program. And from a court accounting standpoint, it'll drive you crazy because you have a dividend. Okay, I got to write that out. Each individual dividend. And then you reinvest in 0.000347 shares of the stock. And you have to treat each of those reinvestments as a new stock purchase. It's really burdensome. So if you are accounting for a big portfolio, talk to the stockbroker to terminate the dividend reinvestment program. Okay. Then the other next item we have receipt of interest, receipt of pensions. This is regular type pensions, CalPERS, other types. The form says keep Social Security separate, so we'll do that, listing each individual payment that comes in. We have rental receipts, how much rent came in. Here you would describe what the property is. You put rental property, I wouldn't put the street address. And if it's a 100-unit building, I would state that because it'll show in the values of the rents are reflective of that. This is for passive rental units. It's not for businesses or those types of transactions. If you're into tax, these would go on Schedule E for passive rental income. But things you do not list here are like Airbnb, bed and breakfast, hotels, because those are classified as businesses and not as rentals. So those would go normally in a tax return on Schedule C and not as a passive rental. Okay, so here we have the Social Security benefits coming in. The new probate examiners, judge assistants in our court are required to take our class each time they hire a new person. And we had one in our class, and she looked at that immediately and said, "That's not right. You can't do that." You have to list every check, every little penny that comes in. In this example, there's 3 months added together. Simple mistake, but it'll cause your accounting to get rejected. Each individual item. And there's going to be a discrepancy between at the end of the year what the Social Security Administration prints on the form 1099 SSA. It will show a higher dollar amount than you're showing because you're only accounting for the net cash that came in, because they frequently peel off Medicare and don't pay it to the recipient. That's none of your business. You're not controlling that money. You don't have to put it on your account. There's a lot of similarities. We do the tax return for these entities, probates and trusts. And this court accounting is similar to tax accounting. We do the IRS form 1041, California FDB form 541, but their entire assumptions are different. This court accounting is based on the California Probate Code, and the fiduciary income tax returns are based on the Internal Revenue Code or the Revenue and Taxation Code. So it's not going to match. The tax return's not going to match what shows on the court accounting, but it might be helpful to someone doing the accounting. Okay, next topic or subject matter here, receipts, other. So we're on the form A6. So receipts, other income coming in. This is basically, you can call it miscellaneous income. Variety of subjects, it's not limited. Healthcare insurance, tax refund, different kinds of items. And at the bottom of the form, you'll see now it says we're done with page 6 of 6 on, they call it page A. Now we go back to this GC 400 sum on page 21 of your material, and we list what they call Schedule A. So all of those pages total out, and this is what we bring forward to our summary. Now we're going on gains on sale. In this case, we had a sale of a residence. We have a carry value from the appraisal, inventory and appraisal. Then we have a sale price, and it says that we had a gain of 19,000. Well, I disagree. I don't think you had a gain of 19,000, but they didn't ask me. The problem with this computation is you take the gross sales price less your carry value, and you ignore all of the escrow closing costs, we call them non-recurring closing costs, to come up with the net income that more than likely is going to end up being a loss for tax purposes. But this is what the form wants. This is how you have to do it. Later on in the material, I'll show you where the closing costs go in the sale of real property. It's kind of ironic on a sale of property. Out of an escrow statement, a final closing statement, you'll have all these numbers across 1 or 2 pages. And it's funny, in court accounting, there's one number you never use in your court accounting, and that's the net cash to the seller. Everything else is accounted for separately. Okay, so we're in the disbursements, money going out now. And we have residential care. So include the care facility. You know, frequently we're seeing them at 6,000 a month in care costs for someone who's in a nursing home. Then we have other disbursements, general. Here again, it's kind of a miscellaneous type item. We have, it shows here conservator fees, reimbursement for bond. In a guardianship, conservatorship, and probate, you cannot take any money out of the finances without court order. So it looks like there's a violation here. The difference is you can reimburse yourself, you can reimburse your attorneys who paid costs for court fees, court investigators. Reimbursements allowed, but no compensation to the guardian, conservator, or the attorney in those cases without court order. That rule does not apply to accounting for trusts. Some other forms that may be helpful to you as a fiduciary. If you find out there's multiple income tax returns that haven't been filed for several years, you know, we have them that way, they haven't filed in 4 years. You can file an IRS form 4506T as in Tango and get the prior year transcript of all the W-2s, 1099s that the person had, so that you can prepare those tax returns. There's a form that you would normally file, an IRS form 56, when you take over responsibilities for someone else's income tax. reporting. It's IRS Form 56. And then the power of attorney form, the Form 2848. In estate planning documents, we prepare a durable power of attorney for asset management so that people can manage someone else's asset if they're incapacitated, but the IRS won't accept it. You have to use their actual Form 2848. And then when you have a fiduciary income tax return with a refund, you have to file a Form 1310, which is states that I'm the fiduciary and I'm going to follow the law and pay the funds as appropriate. Otherwise, the IRS will never issue a refund check. Okay, outbound funds, disbursements, living expenses, miscellaneous items, cable bill, telephone, utilities, water bills, mortgage payments. Medical, this would be the amount paid for the deductible. If the insurance pays the rest, it's only the amount of money that went out of the estate funds. It doesn't matter what the insurance company's paying or covering on it. We have disbursements, property sale expenses. Here's our sale of residence. So we take non-recurring closing costs and list them here. What the term non-recurring closing costs means is costs that happen because of the house sale. So like real estate broker commissions, escrow fees, title insurance, all those only happened because of the property sale. Other, what they call recurring annual costs or intermittent costs may show on the escrow report, but they're not supposed to be listed here as an expense, such as payment of a delinquent cable bill, things of that nature, because they are ongoing, and they may have been prorated in the final closing statement. And when you're doing a house sale, you must get the final closing statements. People give me preliminary closing statements and I can't use them because I don't know what changed later. I have to get the final closing statement. So you have the proper information. One thing I want to point out, we already pointed out the Conservator Handbook for Information. There's another reference material book that you can buy. I don't recommend it for learning how to do fiduciary accounting, but it's the Fiduciary Accounting Handbook. And my friend Margaret Hand in Orinda wrote the book. She took several years and took every kind of transaction you could think of and wrote about it. It's rather expensive. It might cost you $350, but it is, if you're doing a lot of court accountings, it might be helpful because it's authoritative, gives examples, code sections, spreadsheets, and cross-reference material that could be helpful in certain circumstances with a good index. So Fiduciary Accounting Handbook, and it's by CEB, Continuing Education of the Bar in Oakland. Another thing I point out for reference, the Riverside Legal Aid has these court forms all in one place. So they're all strung together in one file if you want them. If you go to the Judicial Council website to get these court forms, they're one at a time, and it gets a little tedious to get the forms you need. If you're dealing with, it happens in conservatorships, you have an accounting that's required because you're conservator of the estate. But there's nothing going on. There may be 3 or 4 transactions for the year. And if the assets are less than 15,000, you can file a form with the court. And it's a form GC 410, request for order waiver of accounting. So you get out of the requirement, and it's, there might be like one bank account with, a few dollars of interest every year, but nothing major. So you can get out of the accounting that way, low assets with court approval. And there's another way to get out of the court accounting, and that is by getting all in a estate or trust or probate, is by having all of the beneficiaries sign a waiver of account. And the court will accept that. They say, well, we trust you, brother-in-law, and we're not going to require you to do the effort of going to court to get it approved. I want to point out some of the errors in accounting that the court comes across. One is not describing what you're spending the money for. So let's say you're the fiduciary and you buy a hot tub for the ward's house. Well, is that for your entertainment or theirs? What you would do in the accounting is describe the person has this type of medical problem and the doctor prescribed it. Another is, let's say you bought 20 sets of bed sheets. What are you doing? Supplying the neighborhood? No, you write in there that the ward was incontinent and that this was a requirement for their particular need. Other errors in accounting, reporting on assets the fiduciary has no responsibility for. So if you're doing a probate and there's also a trust, do not list any trust assets in your probate because the probate operates off the will. Another one is out-of-state property. It's outside of California's jurisdiction, so you don't have to report for the out-of-state property. Missing data. Another mistake is using the net value of a property. You say we got a house and it's worth 1.5 million and we have a $1 million loan. So we're going to put the value in at 500,000. No, you're not. Another problem is fiduciaries paying themselves before other creditors and before court approval. You might get a sanction or a fine from the court for doing that. The courts have been a little bit more liberal lately about accepting a final bank statement. They used to require original bank statements, and they're going more digital. You just need to check with your courthouse. But in addition to the accounting, you have to make available the bank statements to the court if they want them, and use a black felt marker to block out the account numbers except the last 4 digits. For other items here. So we went to the real property. This is an example of a disbursement. We sold some of the household furniture. And that was a consignment fee from a store. Another thing that happens with probates is you can get these consignment estate sales companies. So you've got a house full of furniture, all kinds of things, a full garage, storage shed, everything. And then the company comes out, the family members don't want any of it. And so you have an estate sale, garage sale, yard sale. And this company comes out and has a little cash register and they monitor the sale of all the personal property. Now we're on disbursements for rental properties. Just list them, keep each property separate. One thing you cannot do is, the IRS has a real nice form on Schedule E, page 1, to show rental income and expenses by category. Don't bother turning it into the court. They'll kick it out because it violates the rule that every penny and every transaction has to be reported. Other disbursements, tax preparation, IRS tax due. Here we're selling a car. You take the carry value, sale price, in this case it's a loss, and then whatever asset number was on your inventory and appraisal. Never use that line number again, leave it blank in the future. Okay, so we go back. What we just did is went through all the disbursements. The disbursements, all those different schedules we talked about, loss on sale of property, and then that leaves us up to property at hand at the end of the period. Let me find that page. Okay, so now we're at the end of the accounting period, and it's the same drill we had before on the inventory and appraisal. This happens to be just a year later. List the account, the balance in all the accounts, cash accounts, and then on the non-cash assets, you have the carry value that never changed. And now you estimate all the market value and you bring in the totals, but it's only the carry value that goes back to the GC 400 sum. So we have the 1.047 in the asset end of accounting period, and then the line 7 matches the line 14, and yay, it balances. You'll know the difference about your motion after spending a few hours trying to find errors. It's not entertaining. So we have gone through the functional part of the judicial counsel forms. Let me get this one. Okay, so we've been using government forms, but I want to go back to, if you're going to be doing it on Excel, this is way too big. This is what it might look like. Your GC 400 sum, you would end up copying it from this spreadsheet page. Here we go, the assets on hand, income coming in, money going out, period at the end. So this is right, but you just have to add a GC 400 on top of it before you turn it in. And then what you would have in the Excel type of disbursements is you would break out all your expenses item by item again, but under a heading: attorney's fees, bank charge, court costs, funeral expense, taxes. And so it's a different way to do it. And the Excel version is more common for the courts, but they're both acceptable. And you need the market value at the end. If you're only reporting to trustees, then you can use a chronological approach, which is just each item of income coming in, each item of expense going out, chronological all the way through. And an informal trust accounting can be done this way if you're only reporting to the beneficiaries and there's no court requirement. normally there's no court requirement on a trust, but any beneficiary can put a formal demand into the trustee, and then the trustee must do an accounting, a proper accounting, within 60 days, or they can be removed as trustee. So you decide on how you want to do the accounting, whether it's the judicial council forms or it's the Excel type or other software type approach. So before I give the meeting control back to Tamara, I want to point out, if you want one of these impressive completion certificates, you can email our office and we can get you a completion certificate that you took this class for whatever purpose you might want to use it for, to impress your friends and relatives, I'm sure. And then if you have an interest in MCLE, you can ask our office about that. But at this point, I want to find how to transfer control back to Tamara. Okay, so is there any questions? Nobody made a peep during my whole talk, so I don't know if anybody's awake. Does anybody have any questions of me before Tamara takes control and talks about the court petition?
I had a question.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just curious, like, how much detail do we need to have in the accounting? For instance, like, there's taxable interest, non-taxable, there's a dividends as well, there's partnership distribution. Do we need to like separate all that information, or can we just lump all dividends under dividends, regardless if it's taxable or non-taxable? Same thing with interest.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And based on the context of where we're in, it have to be considered wishful thinking. Trying to do it the easy way that's accurate and truthful, but totally not acceptable. You have to list every dividend, whether it's taxable interest, non-taxable interest, because we're not doing a tax return here. So it doesn't matter. It's just interest or dividends or non-taxable, or I mean, we get all kinds of ones. Classifications. You would go through the broker statement, and every line item you're going to be putting on your accounting. It's just the way it is. And you can go to that extra detail. The court doesn't care whether it's qualified dividends or non-qualified or non-taxable. And they don't care, because they have no sensitivity to any tax related item. They just want to know, you got the money, report it. I don't care why you got it, report it.
Okay,
Does that
that's good
help?
to know. Hmm.
Yeah. So this is a detailed operation. And if you can get the broker's statement, I don't know if they'll give them to you in digital format, maybe in PDF. You could get them in PDF format and then convert them to MS Word type files. I haven't tried it, but
How about like returns? Like if you get a IRS return from your tax, there's
yeah,
sometimes
that's
they pay you interest. Do you
okay.
have to separate that as well, or
It,
can you just lump
you
it as
can
one?
show them both together. Basically, what it's accurate to split them between interest and tax refund. However, the court doesn't care. You
Okay.
got a refund for 25,000 from the IRS, good enough. Yes, you can break it out between principal and interest.
Mm. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Yes, yes, I have a question.
Good.
Yes. It have to do with out-of-state property.
Yes.
Okay. Now if it's out-of-state property, but they're living off the assets of that property, do you report that?
That's a good question. I don't have an accurate answer that I would rely on.
Camera
But
does.
good. So let's hear it.
Hi, sweetheart.
Hi.
So out-of-state property, you really cannot list on the inventory and appraisal because the court does not take possession of out-of-state property. Or you could list it, but give it like a zero value on it because it's out of state property. But anytime you have a deposit, it doesn't matter where that money came from, you must indicate it. So, what I would do is say you have a deposit of $5,250 from rental income that comes from out of state property. You would list on your receipts or your income page that it is rental income from, sometimes I'll list the address, or you could say rental income from New York property or something like that. And then you will list each month the income coming in, and you will have it all under the category of rental income. So now you're accounting for the income coming in, and you're accounting for the expenses that you're paying to when you use the money. You just are not valuing the property as an asset of the conservatorship.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And I see Ralph. You raise your hand and
Yeah.
go for it, sweetheart.
So if I understand you correctly, I don't have to use the court forms. I can use Excel spreadsheets that have the same information.
That is correct. The only thing that you must do is the summary, which is the front page, must be on the GC 400. That's the only page that cannot be Excel generated.
Right, GC 400 sum.
Correct.
Okay. And so can I get it like in a Word document or something I can manipulate or?
No, it's a PDF that's a fillable. If you just do search GC 400
Yeah.
sum, the first one that comes up will be like the courts.ca.gov, and that one will be fillable. So you just
Okay.
fill it out.
But the rest I can just use Excel spreadsheets.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
I have some questions. I'm looking at a second accounting, and I also have a first accounting, and it covers a trust accounting as well as a conservatorship accounting. And what I'm noticing is that most of the issues are in the trust accounting. And what I'm seeing is they did not use that GC 400 sum form for the trust accounting. And then they say that it's for the second accounting, it's for a 2-year period following the first year. But when they provide the schedules, they include a bunch of items that are from outside the reporting period, like from the first accounting. So they're sort of like counted twice. And then they also use as the first, like the property at hand at the beginning of the second accounting is the same as the property at hand at the beginning of the first accounting, and they don't use the amount that was on hand at the end of the first accounting.
Well,
And
that
then
would
I'm
be
also,
okay. You're hold on, because you're asking so many questions. I can't remember the first and the second, but okay. So if they turned in two accounting, one for a conservatorship and one for a trust, unless it's getting court approval, does not require the GC 400 cover page. A trust accounting can use just an Excel. There's no requirements for a trust accounting to use the GC 400 sum page. So that's the first thing. Then mixing or you said, what was your second question? Because I already lost it, honey.
they have a reporting period for the second accounting that includes a 2-year period, but they include entries that are outside that reporting period.
They
So
cannot do that. They cannot do that. That could be if you feel it's inaccurate and you feel you want to tell the court it's inaccurate based on what you believe the inaccuracy is, then that's what you would state. And the court would have them explain or tell you that the explanation is not necessary or whatever the court would have, sweetheart.
Okay, and then they also used as the property at hand at beginning of the second accounting period is the same as the property at hand at the beginning of the first accounting period rather than the end
That is
balance.
inaccurate. Your second accounting must be a duplication of the first accounting's ending account period. You would duplicate it. So now your first accounting's ending assets becomes your second accounting's beginning assets. And that's the only way you can do it.
Okay, and
Right,
then
are these reports filed with the court?
yes,
Okay, and they've already been filed.
they've already been filed.
Okay, so what I would suggest you do is do a real thorough correction report. Point out their errors and then put a demand in to them with your correction stating that this needs to be fixed within 60 days or that you need to go back to court. So you want them to fix it, have them get some feedback from you, and then have them voluntarily bring it back to correct their errors with the court.
Okay, but I will state one thing. So first, it is going to, you'll just do an objection to the accounting and state specifically what you're objecting to or what you do not believe is accurate. You cannot tell the court that they have to tell that person they only have 60 days to correct anything. You can't tell the court to do anything.
No, I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But for third parties, interested parties, there's a statute that says you have to give us an accounting within 60 days. And that's why I was suggesting talking to the creator, not to the court. I also agree, Tamara, that your idea of saying you're objecting to the court is a good one.
What is the statute that requires that?
The court will they will already have a hearing date on the approval of the accounting. So
Yes, I have that.
basically, if you had an objection, they will receive a copy of your objection that you file, and they will likely try to correct it before the hearing for the approval. If they don't get it corrected by the date of the hearing for the approval, the court will automatically extend the hearing date for the approval of the accounting, and they'll likely give, depending on the court, 3 months for the correcting of the accounting to be done and turned in. So the date they have to deliver it to you is not dependent on any request you make. It's dependent on when the court issues the next hearing date and tells that party they have to do A, B, C, D, or they want to see A, B, C, D, or whatever it is that they want to see. That would be delivered in a minute order or a tentative ruling to the executor, administrator, conservatee, whatever that person's title is.
Okay, is there a way to access minute orders if you're pro per?
You would have to go down, if you're Contra Costa, sweetheart, there's a records department that's right around the corner from the courthouse. You can go at any time. It's public information. You can go and request a copy of the minute order.
I'm out of state and I'm wanting information in Ventura County.
Okay, sweetheart, you would have to hire a process server or some type of company that would go to the court for you if it's not available online. Ventura County, I can't specifically remember if you can pull down documents online from them, but I would attempt that first. But if you cannot do that, you would need to contact a process server who would then go to the court and pull that for you.
I want to add some ideas in this regard. More and more courts are allowing you to pull down every document online, so you don't have to go anywhere. And then in addition, since all court documents are public records, all courthouses have a records department that you could contact on the phone, and they would give you the procedure for that county. Alameda, for example, wants so many dollars a page. Other places will give you the forms, but I don't think it requires you going anywhere
Okay,
or
can we go
hiring
back in just
somebody.
a couple minutes?
Hey,
Because I
Rex,
wanna
there's some
call another
chatter
person.
going on while
Yeah,
you're
we
talking.
can't
Okay,
mute.
thanks.
We
Yeah.
can't mute people on our end. So whoever's talking, can you mute your mic, please? I'm sorry, Casey.
Oh, thanks, Nina.
So I'm going to add a little bit to that. There are many counties, especially down south, Orange County. I think Ventura is one of them. There's many counties down south you cannot access any documents online. Cannot access, I don't care what you try and do, what you try and say, what you try and accomplish, you cannot access those documents online. So in that case, especially, I don't believe Ventura County you can access online. But in that case is where I'm saying it would cost you maybe $15 to $30 to hire a process server to go get that data for you. But calling records, good luck. That's the only other way you can do that. I do a whole lot in Ventura County and down south. They're very, very different than here, Contra Costa. Solano County here, you cannot go and you can't just walk in and do things like that. You cannot get documents online, things like that. You can't write them and say, here's my check, I want to pay, please send me. You can't do anything like that. The safest, easiest, best way is to contact a process server, have them, or if you know of, the other thing you could look into is like a mobile notary. Maybe they'll do it, something like that for you. Or you could look up www.calda.org and find an LDA, which is what I am, a legal document assistant, and ask them if you could pay them to go to the courthouse and grab your minute order for you. But they would be more expensive than a process server, hon.
But the other question is, minute orders are for all interested parties in the case.
It doesn't matter.
I know, but it seems like you should have gotten one already.
No, only the minutes orders are only emailed from the court to the executor, or and sometimes they're not. Minute orders are not required to be distributed. I pull them all the time because I always have to do an order after hearing, because LA courts don't allow you to submit an order prior to the hearing. So you have to pull the minute order, and the order has to mirror the minute order.
Yeah, that's a proposed order.
No, proposed order, there's no such thing down south. A proposed order is submitted prior to a minute order, but once you have a minute order, the order is no longer proposed.
It doesn't sound very accessible.
No, and there's some counties, very few, they're all trying to get it together, like Sonoma County once, they're difficult. Monterey County, they're somewhat difficult to get information from. Ventura, Orange County is very difficult. LA County is amazing to me. Love LA. And San Diego is pretty easy also, but there are just some counties that are not as big as your bigger counties that just don't have that software yet to get stuff offline. And especially if you're not an attorney, like I can get a lot more things than a regular person because I'll log in at my attorney logins and get a little bit more information, but it's just not that easy, sweetheart. But I would look online first to see if you can get it online. If you cannot get it online, a process server is the easiest, cheapest route.
Thank you.
Okay, Rex, we're going into now. I'm 16 minutes
Okay.
over. I need control back.
I have transferred host ownership to you now, so as soon as the software processes, you'll be in charge.
I think I got it.
Great.
Okay, everybody ready? We're gonna have to go somewhat quick because I'm definitely gonna go over now. So what I go through now is you've done the accounting. Your inventory and appraisal has already been filed long ago. So now you did your accounting. How do you submit it to the court, and what are you going to say when you do? Because submitting your accounting to the court gives a lot of let's say a lot of protection to either the conservator, the administrator, the executor, there's so many titles, the guardian. When you submit an accounting and the court approves that accounting, your liability for that time period then is over because the court has approved everything you've done. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through what the petition looks like, where you submit the accounting and tell the court you want approval for everything you did during the account period, so that now your liability is no longer with that accounting period. You can move on to your next accounting whenever it's due. But you cannot just turn in the accounting by itself. The court doesn't, they just don't get, they know what it is, but you're not asking them to look at anything, approve anything. You're not giving them any idea what took place during this account period. You're really just not saying, anything at all. So it's important that you do a petition and you do tell the court that now what are you going to do with the accounting? So it needs to be done on pleading paper, and that's what this is called. When you see numbers along the side of the paper, that's called pleading paper. You can look online and get a blank pleading paper just by typing in pleading paper, and it will come up as a Word doc, and you'll be able to fill in all this information. So we're going to go through what you need to fill in. Okay, pretend there's no attorney and it's just you. Remember, same caption that you've used on your inventory and appraisal right here is the same caption you're going to use on the petition right here. So your name, your address, your phone number, fax if you have one, email address, attorney for, even though you're writing attorney for. This will be your name again, conservator, comma, pro per. Same again, heading that we used right here is what you'll copy into your pleading paper. You're going to skip a couple lines and you're going to put the court name. So again, you're using the same format you used here, same court, same, except for you're not including name or address, mailing address, city, branch, blah, 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 right? So you're going to put Superior Court of California. I do mine a little bit different. I will put the county underneath the Superior Court. I'll put County of Orange. You need to put the case number. I separate the case number from the actual heading of your document. So I will put a space in between here. This is an example of your first account. It could say second account, third account, fourth account, fifth account. It could go on and on and on. But in this example, we're going to write first account current and the report of the conservator. Petition for its settlement, so that's you want the court to approve it. We're also going to indicate that there was a sale of a car. I think it's a car in here. So you want the court to approve the car. The only time the conservator can pay themselves, and this is extremely important, the only time the conservator can be paid even a penny is through a petition. It doesn't matter if you are trying to reimburse yourself, like you're the conservator. You paid the property tax for the conservatee last year, and your accounting might be 2 years instead of 1. You are not allowed to write yourself a check and reimburse yourself until you ask for court approval. Only the conservator and the guardian are under that strict rules. For probate, I also, as the administrator, would never pay myself until I get court approval. Be very careful about that. Courts don't like it. You will get your hand slapped. It's very important. So sometimes you may be fronting the conservatee money for quite some time. If it's a problem to where you don't have much money, so you paying the property tax bill wiped out everything you have, of course you can do like an ex parte, which means you're submitting something to the court that you want reimbursement prior to your actual accounting because you have no money and you need that reimbursement back or whatever the case may be. Now, this doesn't mean you can't use the conservatee's money to write a check. Sometimes you may not have access to the bank yet, or sometimes you've ordered checks and you haven't received the checks yet, whatever the case may be, and you have to pay the property taxes or whatever. You may have to front the money up front and then wait to get reimbursed. Be careful. Do not pay yourself back without asking the court and getting court permission. Okay, this is also the only time you can pay an attorney compensation, especially if it's a conservatorship account. Now, what this means is there's 2 different things, because a lot of law firms that are representing conservatees will not take a project without being paid up front, whether it's a retainer, a deposit, whatever that case may be. Most of the time for a conservatorship, the attorney will ask for a $10,000 deposit or retainer. Sometimes it can be more than that. If that's the case, and the only way the attorney will take your case, if you cannot pay the attorney for the conservator's fees, so you would have to pay the attorney from your own personal funds, write the check from your own personal funds to that attorney, and the attorney could use it as they wish. but you can't get reimbursement to pay that attorney those fees until your petition. So this is a really hard part for a lot of people, is coming up with those fees, because some attorneys realize they don't get paid till the court grants it, and some will take your case and then wait to get paid. Most will not. They will require a retainer. You will have to pay it up front, and then they will continue the case for you. The attorney cannot be paid out of the conservatee's funds for any reason until the court grants it. So on this left side, you have conservatorship. It's important whether you state the conservatorship is of the person, which means you make medical and living and decisions on that part, and the estate is what they're looking for. As long as you're conservator of the estate, the accounting you're responsible for, and so you're properly stating you're the one who's in charge of the accounting. This could read just conservatorship of the estate. It will never just be conservator of the person, because then you wouldn't be doing an accounting. If it's a probate, it will say in re, in space re, and then it will be Jeannie Lowry and decedent down here. So always also indicate if the person was going by a former name, like a married name, they used both names on bank accounts and things like that. You also always want to indicate AKA. I don't necessarily write the words also known as, I just do AKA, and then I will indicate the other name here. Okay, so again, this is what are you asking the court to approve? If you are not wanting to take if you are not wanting to be paid conservator fees, then of course you're not going to ask for conservator fees inside this petition heading. This is called their heading. If you don't have an attorney, you're not going to ask for attorney compensation. So you are going to adjust this heading to fit your situation. If you're not selling any vehicle or any personal property, you're not going to put this in here, right? It may be a very short, just first account, current and report of conservator and petition for its settlement. And that's all yours reads. That could read that. So make sure your heading is what you're asking for inside your petition. Where it says date of hearing, you will indicate date of hearing, but you will not indicate the date of your hearing. As soon as you submit this petition, the file clerk will indicate the date of hearing for you and will return the document. They'll mark it filed right here in this section, and they will indicate the hearing date. So you leave this blank. You will put the words, but you will leave the date blank. Let them put it in. Time. Again, same thing, time. You are not going to say you don't know what time's going to be given to you. Leave this blank. Let the clerk fill it in. Department. You know what department you're in because you don't change departments. It's the same department you've always been heard in. I also do not include the judicial officer here. I don't put any words about the judicial officer at all. The reason being is a lot of times, especially down in LA, they're switching judges, switching courtrooms. You might have a pro tem sitting in. You might have a commissioner sitting in. You might not know who the judge is going to be the day this hearing is being held. So I don't ever indicate the judicial officer. I just don't put anything there. Everybody okay on just the header part? Okay, I'm going to keep rolling. Okay, you're going to start it out. The petitioner is you. I put mine a little bit different. Here they indicate hereinafter called the conservator. So every time I state just the words conservator, I'm telling the court that is to mean David Lowry or me. I don't do mine this way. I will put quotes in front of the word, quotes in front of the C and quotes after the C to indicate that I mean hereinafter I'm going to just be saying conservator. I'm not going to actually retype the name David Lowry over and over and over again. Okay, so as conservator of the estate, which is interesting because which makes this sample a little bit wrong, because you indicate up here you're conservator of the person and estate, but down here only indicate the estate. So that's technically wrong. It would be as conservator of the person and the estate. Unless this only reads of the estate, then this would be accurate. Okay, Jeannie Lowry is the conservatee. You are presenting for settlement and allowance, your first account current. What I like to do is actually present for settlement and allowance. I put a semicolon and then I just copy whatever my header says and I put that here. That's the way I do it, but you can use the wording of this sample. So as the petitioner, who is David Lowry, the petitioner respectfully states, so you're telling the court, what did I do during this account period, right? First and foremost, you always want to put everything in your petition. Do not rely on the court, or don't say, you can go back and look when I was appointed. I don't care. You look yourself. That's not the judge's job, honey. No. In court submissions, your papers are called, they must stand on their own. What does that mean? That means when I pick up this piece of paper, I should be able to read within your petition everything I want to know about this case. That is your papers standing on their own. So we're going to start with appointment. When were you appointed? Me as a petitioner was appointed the conservator of the person and the estate of Jeannie, also known as Jeannie Gray, on this date. This first date is going to be which is what makes another thing wrong about this. This is your order date. This is the date of the hearing. This is the date you went to court and the judge said, okay, I officially approve you as the conservator and you need to post a $20,000 bond and then you can get your letters. So sometimes your order date and your letters date will be different. This could have been a Friday. This could have been a Monday. On Friday, you had your hearing. You said, oh, geez, I need to go get a bond. You quickly get your bond. You have it for Monday morning. You go in with your letters and you say, now I have my bond. Here's my letters. I want them certified. And the file clerk will give you certified letters, which means you are officially the conservator. Now, what makes this petition wrong, and why I said at the beginning of my course, anytime on this date of appointment right here, this date actually is inaccurate. This date is not the date of letters. This date is the date of appointment, which is the date of letters. So it should have read March 14th and not March 8th. But this is the example that's in the conservatorship handbook. So we have to teach what's in the book, even though it is inaccurate. But you always want that date to be date of letters, not date of order. Okay, so or sometimes your letters will be your same date as your order. Good, that's easier. But most of the time they will not. So you got your letters on the 14th. At all times since then, you have been acting as the conservator. Great. Paragraph 1 done. Inventory and appraisal. We went through this, so I'm going to tell the court, okay, on my inventory and appraisal, I filed with the court on May 25th, 2012. I'm going to get that information right here in this section because the court will stamp a file stamp, or if it's electronically submitted, it will say electronically filed with the Superior Court, blah, 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 on this date and time. So you will want to transfer that information down here. So it was filed on this date, and it showed a total value of $1,342,258.59, and that should be the same total is right here. Once it's completed, remember ours sample is not completed, but when it is completed, that's where you're going to get your total. That's going to be the total you're accounting. They're going to look and go, okay, now I know your starting assets better say this number. If it doesn't, check mark on your, and like a teacher, you're going to have to answer why it doesn't. Okay, so we're going to continue on. The third number is, what is the account period? So I'm telling the court the account period is from March 8th, inaccurate. It should have been March 14th to March 7th. It's 1 year time period. So you're going to indicate what is your time period of your accounting. This again, I know, Ralph, you're the one. Sorry. You're the one doing a probate. Again, this petition is going to look totally different for you as a probate. My probate petitions look totally different than my conservatorship petitions. Different information has to go in there, a tiny bit different format. So keep in mind, I'm only showing you the conservatorship and the guardianship petition. So yours will be a little bit different. Okay, charges and credits. You want to make sure you indicate this. You're just going to tell the court just copy what's here. Number 5, authorized investments. You want to tell the court that at all times, which is extremely important, all cash that was in the conservatorship has been in an interest-bearing account. So you take over a conservatorship, they have a checking account. That checking account does not get interest every month. You must immediately change that bank and get an account that draws interest. If you do not do that, I will tell you, you're putting yourself at risk, and it happens all the time. I was just in a continuing education class yesterday that had to do with bonds for the professional fiduciary. So a tiny bit different, but it all makes sense. So what happened was they were telling a story how a beneficiaries of a conservatorship. So they had a professional fiduciary running a conservatorship, and somehow, some way, the professional fiduciary forgot to put the account or the checking account in an interest-bearing account. The beneficiaries of that conservatee, because that conservatee passed away, the beneficiaries actually attacked the bond of the professional fiduciary and said, hey, by the way, you didn't have this account in the interest-bearing account, and now you owe me $500 of interest or whatever that the account should have gained had you put the money in an interest-bearing account. And guess what happened? Bond company had to pay out the $500 to the beneficiaries, then went after the professional fiduciary and said, hey, now you owe me $500. And that is not a good look. That's not something you want. So again, if you take over a conservatorship account and even a probate account, all account money must be in interest-bearing accounts. If they are currently not interest bearing, you must move those accounts into interest bearing accounts. Make sure, very important. So you will indicate on here that all my cash accounts are in interest bearing accounts. Perfect. Statement of liabilities, you're going to state here whether there are any liabilities. Typically what this means is, let's say your conservatee before you took over did a oh doggone it, what are those called, those older home that are, I can't think of those lines of credit that's older people take in conservatorships. Oh, I can't think of the name, doggone it. Anyway, where
Reverse mortgage.
reverse. Yeah, I love you. Okay, thank you, hon. I could not think of that. Reverse mortgage. So, say for instance, they had a reverse mortgage. Typically, that means the minute that person dies, the reverse mortgage will call their loan and say, hey, we want our money right now. And you're going, oh, Jesus, I haven't even settled the account and blah, blah, blah. And they say, well, we're going to foreclose. Or in a conservatorship, you have to be very, very careful, because in a conservatorship, if they have a reverse mortgage, you put them into a care home. Maybe it's a dementia memory care facility, because they just cannot live at home anymore by themselves. The court approves you to move them to a facility. If that reverse mortgage company finds out they moved to a facility and they are no longer living at their residence, they will call that loan immediately. Calling that loan means if they took a loan out for $100,000 on a reverse mortgage and they no longer live in that residence, they are going to call that $100,000 reverse mortgage. They're going to call it right then and there. You can't pay it right then and there. They're going to start foreclosure notices, and they're going to want to foreclose on the property, force the sale so that they can get their money. They're all about getting their money, hun. But you can talk to them in some circumstances and say, okay, hold on, this is under court submission. Before I can sell the property, I have to request court approval, and I have to go through that process. So please give me time. Some will, some won't. If they won't give you the time you need, then you would have to petition the court to say, hey, can you stop this foreclosure? Because they won't wait for me to petition the court to ask for the sale and then get a buyer and all this you have to go through. And it's such a hassle. I hate reverse mortgages. Hate them, hate them, hate them. Especially with the court and with accountings and with conservatorships. They're the worst. But there's ways around it. You just have to do a whole lot. If there is a charge lien, say for instance, before the conservatee, before you took over, they had a kitchen remodel and they didn't have the money to fully pay for that kitchen remodel. So the remodeling company put a lien against the property that if and when the house is ever sold, they're paid back first, something of that nature. If there's a lien on the property, you must indicate this here. Also, in a statement of liabilities, what I like to include, for instance, is if in my accounting I have fronted as the conservatee, I have fronted the money for property taxes, whatever. Now I have a liability that should be indicated on the accounting, because I have a liability that I'm owed now back from the conservatee. I could indicate this here if I wanted to, but I also want to indicate that no taxes are due. Typically that means state and federal, but it could also mean property. And excuse me, there are no outstanding judgments against the conservatee. Sale of the automobile. You would not indicate this if you're not going to sell the automobile. Okay, when I say that, I've had many people after go back and watch my accountings or watch these on YouTube. And then when I said you don't have to include it if you don't have it, I only mean this one item. I don't mean anything up here. So I got an accounting and they were mad. It got rejected. The petition got rejected. Well, you decided not to put in 1, 2, 3, and 4. You started at like item number 10, and no wonder it got rejected. They said, but you said if it doesn't pertain to me, don't include it. The only one I'm referring to is number 7 right now. Keep in the rest of the items here. So in this case, I've asked the court to approve me selling the automobile. So this is saying, gosh, I keep sneezing. I'm so sorry. This says the conservator sold the conservatee's automobile. It was on the inventory and appraisal. I don't give this much detail, but I will say it was on the inventory and appraisal, and the probate referee valued it at $1, $2, $3, $4, and I sold it for a loss. But I request confirmation as to why it was sold for a loss. Reasons why you might sell for a loss. Say, for instance, the probate referee values the automobile in 2012, right? When the first time the conservatorship, when you got letters. And maybe later on you want to sell it and it's 2026. Well, during that time, the car has been left out in the rain. It's got some damage now. Maybe it no longer runs. The engine froze. I could come up with a million things that happened to that car from the time it was appraised to the time I want to sell it. Well, if that's the case, I lost value on it because of just the years and the not driving it and the deterioration of it, right? So it's okay that I sell it for a loss. What is not okay is, for instance, you have this automobile, it's been in the garage, it has not moved, it still starts, it's in the same condition of when it was appraised. But say my brother, or no, let me go better, my son turned 16 and he wants a vehicle, but all he has in his savings account is $1,000. Now the probate referee valued the car at $5,000. I absolutely cannot sell for a loss to my son this car for $1,000 because that's all the money he has. Well, that's my son's problem, nothing to do. Do not ever do that, especially if it's a family member, a friend of yours. Be careful selling anything as a loss to a family member or a friend, because some beneficiary is going to come back and go, oh, hell no. You just sold that to your best friend, Johnny, and lost us $4,000 of money. And they will come back and they can sue you for that difference unless you have a very, very good reason why you sold that for a loss. Be very careful. You have to realize these assets are not yours. They never were yours. They never will be yours. They are not yours. You're taking care of somebody else's asset. So although you might have sold your car to your son for $1,000, even though it has a value of $5,000, but that does not mean you have permission to sell somebody else's asset for a loss because you want to. I don't care if they're not driving anymore. It doesn't matter if you still have to pay DMV fees on it and it never moves, blah, yada, 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 yada. That does not give you the okay to sell to your friends or your family members a vehicle for a loss. Now, if you wanted, say it got appraised for 5,000 and they came up and said, I have 4,500 or 4,800, will you possibly take that? You can consider that, but what I would do is do what's called a notice of proposed action that I send every beneficiary. Hey, I got this vehicle. They can't drive it anymore. There's no reason to pay insurance and DMV fees on it, or keep gas in it, or keep it running, or keep it in mint condition, because they never will be able to drive it. And I just don't see why. Or maybe we're selling the conservative's house and there's nowhere to store this vehicle, or for some reason. So it got appraised for 5,000, but I'm only going to sell it for 4,800. They then have so many days to either object to it and say, no, you're not, I'll take that car for 4,800. And then you have to tell your friend, sorry for your luck. A beneficiary wants the car for the same price. If you want to give full value or try to negotiate, we can do that, but so on and so forth. But be very careful when you're talking this loss right here. But in this case, you already sold it for a loss, so you're telling the court you want confirmation from the court that it was okay for you to sell it for a loss. And therefore, if the court says, yes, you're all right, I approve that, then the beneficiaries can no longer come back and go, oh, hell no, he sold it to a friend and I want him to pay the difference for the loss and blah, blah, blah. At that point, the court's going to say, I already approved it. I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do about it right now. So again, you're reducing your liability. You're protecting yourself by getting court approval. That's what you're doing. Okay, same thing with the sale of furniture. In this case, it was furniture in vacation home, or the house is going to be sold. They, in this case, used a dealer, did an auction, whatever the case may be. You may hold a garage sale. You may feel that the value of this stuff is not worth anything. Like, you cannot sell old beds. You're not going to get a value. I don't care if you think it's the most amazing bed ever. It's going to be very hard to sell the mattress and box spring somebody else has slept on to somebody else. Like, it just doesn't happen that way. And so I think my allergies are killing me today. So remember that when you're selling property, and be very careful on a conservatorship, you really have to be very, very cautious and really state that without a doubt that conservatee will never be able to move back into their residence. So you're selling the property. So again, you're just getting approval. So you're going to state everything that happened, what you sold it for, how much maybe an estate company took to sell it, blah, 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 blah. This would have been indicated in your accounting. Next, again, if you don't sell anything, you would not put in number 8. Number 9, same thing. This is a sale of the real property in a conservatorship. You are never allowed to sell any real property without court confirmation, court approval first. So even if they had a vacation home, you would have to petition the court to sell the vacation home, and it has to be in front of the court. And in this case, it was sold. There was a gain that's shown on your accounting, so on and so forth. You're good there. Again, if you don't sell a house, then you're not going to ask for this. Now, a lot of times, I think this is funny that this is put in here, that you need approval from the court for selling the vacation home. Well, guess what? The court is the one that approved the sale to begin with, because everybody has to go to court. It's almost like a bidding war with the judge on the value, and whoever wins the bid actually gets to buy the house, and the court signs it. So why they're asking again for court approval is strange to me, but I'm gonna go with what the example shows. Okay, Additional bond. Now, sometimes you might not say additional bond. You may just say bond. So say, for instance, at the very beginning, the court says I had to pay a $20,000 bond. What I would indicate here is bond was posted in the amount of 20,000. I now have 50,500, and I know I need to increase the bond amount to 50,500 or whatever the case may be. Or you could say my bond at 20,000 still covers me, and so on and so forth. The problem you're going to have, and this is going outside of everything, is a pro per, or a person who's representing themselves, cannot obtain a bond more than $20,000. So if you sell the house and now have more cash, what likely will happen is you're going to have to take that cash that's more than your $20,000 bond, and you're going to have to put it in a blocked account, which means you're going to have to petition the court, get an order to put the money in the blocked account. You will not be able to touch that money without court approval, so on and so forth. And therefore, you can still keep your $20,000 bond. You can still be a pro per, and you can still finish off being a conservator. So again, you just have to remember, if your bond is a certain dollar amount, you sell real property and turn it from a attachment to asset to cash, you would have to increase a bond. So again, suggestion would be you ask to put this money in a blocked account so you can keep your bond amount at 20K and you can contain. Because if the court says now, oh no, you need a bond of 184,000, you cannot get a bond for that amount without getting an attorney. You can't afford an attorney, so now what do? I'm screwed, right? You can't tell the court, I can't get a bond for that amount because of this, that, or the other. The court's going to say, well, you got to figure out then to get an attorney, or you have to figure out other means. Again, suggestion could be, not telling you it would be, it could, if that's what you wish to do, that I put this money in a blocked account so I can still keep my bond at 20K. Anyway, this will go through the example of that. You absolutely must have this in your petition, whether you're going to get an additional bond or whether you're going to keep the bond at 20K, or maybe in the beginning you had no bond because there was no cash, there was only real property, and now you sold the real property. The court's going to say, now you have cash and we need a bond to cover the cash. So in that instance, the court's going to say, I want a bond of 184. You yourself now know you can't get a bond more than 20K. You may say, Your Honor, is there any way that I could change it to a bond of 20K because I know I can get that, and then the rest I'll put in a blocked account. Or you will tailor your questioning to the judge and let the judge decide right then and there, okay, we'll go with that. You need to fill out some more forms that I need to sign so you can put the money in a blocked account, and then you have to turn in the forms to the court to prove you really put the money in the blocked account. And then now you can only have cash, which you can control and spend, of up to a 20,000, which your bond covers. Okay, no affiliate relationship. You must include this. Again, this has to do with if you are hiring a family member. I only have 1 minute. I know it, I don't know if the class, I think it goes till 12 or 12:30. I have a little bit more to go. If you wish to stay, I would love to have you stay. If you cannot because you did not schedule any longer, you can always come back and watch the class. Remember, we've put our email addresses, our contact information in the chat. Make sure you write that down before you leave. Otherwise, if you need to leave, please do so, but I'm going to continue as fast as I can going through the petition. So you can have a full, complete one. Okay, so no affiliate relationship. What I'm saying here is I have not hired any family member to, I never paid from the conservatorship account any of my family members. And again, I'll give you examples. This would be, say for instance, you were going to sell the conservatee's house and your wife or husband was a real estate agent. It's okay that you use your husband or your wife, who is the real estate agent, but you have to make sure that their commission that they charge on selling that house is no different than if you were to hire any other realtor. So say, I think it's usually about 5% or 5.5% that realtors charge as a whole for the the seller and the buyer's agents. Say for instance, 5.5, let's just use 5 because it's easier. 5% is the amount they charge. Because you're using your wife or husband, they can't say, well, my rate's 6%, and you're going to have to say, I'm sorry, then I can't use you because the most I could do is what everybody else charges. But you can use your husband or wife if their compensation is the same as if you were to hire anybody else who holds the same title. Now, if you do hire your wife or your husband to be the agent, all you would indicate here is, yes, I hired my husband who's been a real estate agent for 15 years and is very knowledgeable, but they charge the same commission as if I would have hired a complete stranger. That's a real estate agent. So it's okay to put that. The other thing would be, say, for instance, I'm a conservatee. I'm a conservatee. I'm not. I'm a conservator. And my conservatee, say, has a landscaper because they live in an HOA property or a homeowners association, and the lawn needs to be mowed every week. I don't know. I'm coming up with some. And the landscaper says, hey, by the way, I need to take a month vacation, so I can't mow the lawn. Well, shit, I'm not getting out and mowing the lawn because I have one, I don't want to, but two, yes, I could because I do mow my own lawn, but maybe I don't want to, right? So I could hire a different landscaper. But say, for instance, again, I use this. My son comes home from college. He's off for the summer and he needs money for college. And I say, hey, son, by the way, can you do me a huge favor? Every week, will you go mow, her lawn? And he goes, yes, but I need, I could be doing other things. So I want $100 every time I go. Okay. But I know that I only pay the regular landscaper $50 every time they go. I absolutely would have to tell my son, nope, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I cannot pay you anything more than what I pay the regular gardener. It's either $50 every time you go or I got to find somebody else. That's how it goes. And I would indicate here if I hired my son to mow the lawn, I would indicate I did hire my son to mow the lawn, but he was paid the same compensation as the actual regular landscaper that I always use. Got it? Any questions on that part? Ooh, let's go. Okay, conservator compensation. This is the part where you can or cannot ask for compensation. Sometimes people, if it's their mom or if it's their mom or somebody else, I just seen a thank you, Casey. So say it's your mom and you say, I feel a little funny charging my mom. Keep in mind when you say that, you are doing a lot of work that none of your other brothers, sisters, relatives are doing. You are really doing a lot of work to do this conservatorship. You realize, yeah, taking money from my mom is kind of a tiny bit weird, or I feel strange or whatever. Realize all of the work you're doing that nobody else is doing. And there is nothing wrong with you being compensated for what you're doing, whether it's your brother, whether it's your mom, your brother, cousin, your dad, it doesn't matter who the family member is or is not, right? You're doing a lot of work. It doesn't mean you have to ask for $50,000. Well, I'm going to tell you, if you ask for that, you aren't going to get it anyway. But it's okay if you're going to court, you're having to pay for parking, you had to take a sick day off from work, you had to, do all that. It's okay to be compensated for that work you're doing, and you should not feel bad for doing so. Because nobody else is stepping up to the plate. And it's not fair that you're doing all this work and nobody else is, and they're getting what you're getting, but you're doing all the work, even though you're doing it for the love of your family member, not so much to get paid. You have to realize people are going to say what they're going to say, and you just need to ignore them sometimes. You're entitled to compensation regardless. So let's go through what you would write, say, even if you don't ask for compensation, this is still what I would include. So as conservator, we're going to use their sample. I have spent 150 hours providing services to the conservatee during this time period. What that means, you've gone to the facility to visit her. You've gone and bought clothing. You've gone in, maybe she needs incontinence, so you're always running to Costco. You're paying bills. You're working with the banker. You're switching bank accounts because they weren't interest bearing. You're making medical appointments. You're maybe picking them up and taking them to the medical appointments. You're going to court, you're writing up this petition, you're doing the accounting. Goodness gracious, you're just doing a whole lot of stuff. You're going to indicate how many hours you believe you spent. It's important to keep kind of a log so you know yourself. Otherwise, a year goes by and you're going to go, oh shit, what did I spend? I think I went to court and it was too hot. Now you're guessing. So anyway, put the amount of hours you believe you've spent. And so he indicates, this is my mom. I have visited the care facility at least once a week. I made sure she's receiving proper care. Love this. I am making sure her personal needs are met. Absolutely love this. I have marshaled all of the assets, meaning you've taken control. You know what you are. They're in your possession. The car's in the garage. You have the garage locked. You're the only one with the key. No brother, sister, aunt, uncle, cousin, or stranger can break in and steal the car. You have it. You have it. You know where, if it's moving, if it's not moving. You know everything because you've taken possession of that. Okay, you've paid bills, you've managed the estate frugally, meaning you're not just out willy-nilly. I've had a conservator case, which I thought was fascinating, but we got it explained. This was out in, I want to say, Fresno to Larry's, that direction, somewhere out that direction. I can't remember exactly, but the conservatee had always dressed very well, very, let's say, fancier than jeans in a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, blah, 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 blah. So the son was the conservator. Mom, at the end of time, started just part of her age and her condition, let's say started having accidents in her clothing. At that point, because they were out in public and so on and so forth, he didn't feel, well, he felt that his first thing was get her new clothes. I need to put her in new clothes. She doesn't need to be embarrassed. I don't need to take her home. We're on vacation, whatever it is. I don't have a spare set of clothes for her. I'm not even close to the hotel because maybe we're visiting Yosemite, whatever the case may be. So he went out and he bought, and in this case, it really wasn't clothes. It was tennis shoes, and it leaked down through the pant. You know the story. Okay, so on to the tennis shoes. Well, she has always worn Nike tennis shoes, I think, or they were New Balance or a specific tennis shoe. The court actually, which I was shocked, actually asked, why did you spend so much money on tennis shoes that you know are going to get ruined? Well, the conservatee's response, and I had him write his own words in a response because I can't give it. The conservatee's response was, she's always worn these Nike. She's never worn anything but Nike. And Your Honor, we don't believe that we should downgrade what she wears based on you thinking she's going to destroy these shoes. Like, that is the most absurd thing to me. But the court asked, so he had to answer. Believe it or not, he did get it approved finally. And there was a few other things like she wore specific, I don't know, blouse and pants, and she likes her expensive things. And I don't know if the court wanted her to go to, I don't know, Goodwill or Marshall's or whatever, but that's not where she shopped. And so they were mad at first, but he explained it and it went through. So anyway, when you're saying you're being frugal with the estate, that's what it kind of means. Don't, because you like Nikes, go out and start buying new Nikes. No, if she's always worn cheaper, maybe it's Crocs that she wears, don't go out and buy $150 Nikes because you like the Nikes. Be frugal about their money. Okay, so continuing on, he arranged the sale of the automobile, which he can no longer drive. He also sold the vacation home. He was the one who managed the sale of all the personal property, yada, yada, yada. So what he wants to say is, I've received no compensation up to this point, but I am now going to request $500 for the 150 hours. Seems very reasonable to me, because I know for Contra Costa there was a local court rule. It used to be that the conservatee can ask, the conservatee doesn't ask for anything. The conservator can ask for up to $50 an hour for all time spent on a conservatorship. Now it's been increased. I think it was increased in 2023. So, geez, almost 3 years ago. It's 75. I like to stick between the 50 and 75. Any other county, you might not be able to find through a local court rule what they believe is reasonable, and that's the word they use, compensation. So I like to stick within that range. I don't like to see anything more. I don't like to see anything, less. Yes, perfect. But nothing more than the 50, and 75 is pushing it. Maybe if I was explaining several house sales and you were doing, then I maybe, but it's not up to me to decide. It's really whoever's putting the petition together. But in this case, he only wants $500, which he feels is reasonable to pay himself back for missed work or court hearings. So again, this is where you're asking for compensation. You may write all this stuff like, I spent all these hours, I did all this work. This last line may say conservator waives compensation, meaning you don't want anything. I'm good. You can do that also. But then again, up in your title of your document, you will not have that you're asking for compensation up in here. Okay? Keep going down. Attorney fees, you always want to include this. Attorney compensation. In this sample, there was an attorney, so they're asking for attorney fees. But in yours, if you are a pro per, you will indicate conservator did not have the funds to retain an attorney, or just did not want to retain an attorney, or whatever your reason will be. You would state, therefore, no attorney compensation is requested. Something of that nature. Use your own words, not mine, but something along that line. Okay, coming down, really important that you indicate to the court veteran benefits, whether the conservatee was or was not receiving veteran benefits. Very important that you indicate that in here. It is also important that you indicate whether the conservatee was in a state hospital. If they were not, you will still indicate they were not a patient, or if you know they were a patient, you would indicate, yes, they were a patient and the state hospital they were in. This is not an option. If you do not include this in your petition, you will get tentative rulings, examiner notes that state you did not to file a verified declaration regarding veteran benefits or regarding state hospital. That's what they're asking for. So you must indicate that in here. Conservatee's address. You will want to indicate where the conservatee is, but I don't know that I necessarily put the address. If the conservatee is home, I don't want people who anybody can pick up this petition and know I have an elderly lady who's under a conservatorship, who's living by her house herself at her house. Oh my God, that would put her in such extreme danger. No, I would never indicate that. If they're in a facility, I may just indicate the facility name. I'm not giving the address. Look it up if you want to. But typically those type of facilities are locked and you just can't come in and go in and visit people like that. So it's a little safer. I may just indicate the conservatee address has not changed since the petition, or the conservatee's address is the same as my last accounting, or something of that nature. And that just tells the court you haven't moved them. They're going to send out a probate exam, conservator exam, or an examiner, a probate investigator out to meet with the conservatee anyway, so they're going to know the address through their report, which is kind of confidential, meaning not anybody can get that report. So they know the address, but you're just going to want to indicate something. Account statements, you're going to want to indicate I'm not attaching them to this petition. Do not ever attach your bank statements. They have their own separate cover page. They must be submitted confidentially, which means when they're filed with the court, no one except for you, and I don't even know if you can, get a copy of those bank statements once you submit them. Once they're submitted confidentially, the only one who has access to those confidential documents are the courts or an attorney or somebody of that, let's say, title. They're secure, they're very confidential, they mean confidential. So you're stating, I am not attaching them here, but I'm submitting them separately. But you always want to submit at least the first accounting bank statement that shows your assets at the beginning of the account period and the ending. That's how the court knows they can verify what your accounting says. So those you want to submit. Some people submit them all, some courts want them all. I try and only submit the first and the last. And if the court comes back and says, hey, whoa, you need more than this, or we want more, yeah, okay, I'll submit more. But at the beginning, I usually only submit the first and the last. But you want to indicate to the court you're submitting the bank statements. And again, there's a blank cover page that's in the samples. So use the samples to submit. Okay, capital charges, I'm going to say they're all within the schedules I've attached, whether those schedules are the Excel schedules or the actual accounting schedules, depending on what you use, your dating, everything's indicated. There, in this case, there was a liability, there was a promissory note. I don't necessarily include all these details because a lot of times I don't know the details, but the balance of the note on this day, which is the end of the account period, was this. Sometimes I don't know that. The note calls for a monthly payment. If I want to, I'll indicate this, but most of the time I'll state there is a note or there is a first deed and trust on this property. Or there's a reverse mortgage secured on this date for this balance. I will indicate something like that, but to indicate what the interest rate and all that, good luck trying to find that information if you're a pro per. I can find it out because I have my ways of finding out things, but that's typically with an attorney login and different ways for me to get that information. So you might not know that information. Request for special notice. We're almost done, I promise. Request for a special notice. So what this means is you always must indicate this. A request for special notice. So I know nothing about your case. Nothing. I know nothing. It doesn't matter. But if I want to, I can fill out a form for $40 and file it with the court that says every time you submit a document to the court, I get a copy of it. I don't have to know you. I don't have to know the conservatee. I don't have to know anything. I don't even have to state why I want it. It's public information, $40, and I know everything about your case. And everything you're filing. I get a copy of your accounting. I see where you're spending your money. I see what loans you're paying off. I see everything I want to see. Seems a little scary and intimidating, and not a lot of people know, you can do this, and I don't like when people do this, but there are a lot of reasons why. Franchise tax board, if taxes haven't been paid or taxes are owed, franchise tax board will file a request for special notice in a hot minute. Internal Revenue Service, I don't see them usually filing anything with the court. Remember though, Internal Revenue Service is federal, courts are state, so they don't necessarily follow what franchise tax board would follow. Another thing is, say a beneficiary takes a pre-distribution loan from some loan shark somewhere, they will file a request for special notice. If you don't pay the probate referee in the time specified, I think they give 60 days to pay them after they've delivered the inventory and appraisal. They will file a request for special notice because every time you file something with the court, they're going to tell the court, hey, FYI, I've not been paid. So guess what? The court's going to keep asking you, why haven't you paid the probate referee? And if you don't, and it continues on, they may remove you as the conservator for not paying the probate referee, whatever your reason would be. So anybody can file a request for special notice. If they do file that request, you will get a copy of it, being the conservator or the administrator or the executor or the guardian. You will get this notice. And so you know from now on, every single time you submit a document with the court, you must include them in the mailing. So in that case, either I'm going to say there have been no requests, or I'm going to say I have received 2 requests for special notice. They are as follows: Franchise Tax Board, I'll list their address that I must give them notice to, and then I'll say Tamara Brown, probate referee, this address, and that's what I'll indicate. So you must indicate whether there are or are not any requests for special notice. Now we're getting down to a prayer. We've said all we needed to say to the court about the accounting. And now what do we ask for? We're going to say, I, the conservator, pray. Always use that word. It doesn't mean you're going to church. It doesn't mean you're actually sitting in front of a rabbi or a priest or confessing all your sins. No, that's not what this praise means. But it kind of is just more of a respectful wording for the court. So you're actually praying that the court does what? So this is what we want the court to do: that this first account and report be approved and settled. So everything within the accounting, the court blesses, approves, and now I'm no longer responsible for it. Unless, of course, I've lied, I've cheated, I misrepresented, I grossly stole, whatever that case may be. This isn't going to help you whether a court signs it or not, sweetheart. Please don't do that. They will find out, it will get ugly. Please, you're appointed to take care of the person. Your job is to be very diligent about their stuff. Okay. As if you would want, say, you have to realize, if you were put in this situation, what would you want your conservator? How would you want your conservator to treat your money, your assets, your bills, your people, etc.? That's what you need to be. That's what you need to live up to for somebody else. Put yourself in their shoes and deal with it, handle it that way. Okay, so the acts of me as conservator in the account be approved. Acts could be, again, selling, reinvesting dividends. It could be, paying the bills, paying property taxes, filing tax returns, all this kind of stuff that happens within the conservatorship. So you're telling the court, please approve it. That you're also, again, remember the caption right here. Everything in this caption needs to be in your prayer. Sorry, I'm going to the wrong page. Oh boy. So I want the sale of the automobile confirmed, even though it was for a loss. Remember, we had that up further. I want the sale of the furniture to be confirmed. Okay. I want to be able to pay myself $500 compensation. Again, you may state compensation to conservator is being waived. Or you will say, I want to be authorized to pay myself $500. You're going to have either or. Either you're waiving it or you're going to ask for compensation. Again, it's up to the court whether they feel your compensation is proper. So just because you put in $500, the judge can look at it and go, no, you're getting 100, or you're getting 5. Let's say they never go up, but they do go down if they want to, or if they feel you really haven't done much to the amount you're asking for. Okay, you're also asking for the attorney to be paid. Either you would write no attorney compensation requested, or you're going to write, I wish to have the attorney paid their compensation, and always include that the court may add anything they want to add. That's just a respectful thing. So if the court determines, oh, I want to also add in there that your next accounting is due on this date, or I want to add in there that your next accounting is due in 1 year instead of 2 years, because I'm a little bit leery of how you completed this accounting, and I just want to see it in a year to see if you've gotten better or if I need to replace you. You're basically telling the court, any other thing you want to decide that I've turned in, please feel free. You have my full blessing to make those decisions. Then you're going to date it. This is going to be a little bit different. You don't have an attorney. Skip this, remove it, don't add it. You will only have the line that you will sign as the conservator. And lastly, one more page, very important. You must always have a verification. You can copy this verification word for word. You are stating basically under penalty of perjury. This is the most important part of this entire verification, not the date, but it won't let me just highlight the wording. That under penalty of perjury, this is correct. You're not lying. This is what gets you. If you declare under penalty of perjury and you've actually lied within this is a reason why the court can hold you and have other sanctions against you, or do, file claims against you or whatever, if you purposely lie when you declare under penalty of perjury. So you could write this word for word. You need to make sure you date it and sign it. Let's see what comes next. Oh, here is again pleading paper. This is for submitting original bank statements. Again, follow the pleading format where you would just include your name here, the county and account number. You're going to say original bank statements, and you're going to now, I do a little bit different than this sample Rex gave. I will put in big letters, confidential original bank statements. I will again put down here, confidential original bank statements. I want that word confidential just everywhere, because I want to make sure it's filed confidentially and it is not included in any of my work. Now, that is the petition. Lastly, there is one more thing you will be responsible for, and it is the order. As you will notice on the petition, as we're here on the petition, there's no place for the judge to sign. See that? Your judge has to sign it. The judge will only sign an order. So we don't have the time during this class. As you can see, it's already running over. We don't have the time to go through the order, but there has to be an order. And basically, your order will mirror this prayer, and it will say things like, the accountant report are approved and settled. The acts of the conservator in the accountant report are approved. The sale of the conservatee's automobile is approved and confirmed. The sale of the conservatee's furniture is approved and confirmed. The conservator is authorized and directed to pay himself $500 compensation during this account, for this account period. The conservator is authorized and directed to pay attorney blah 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 the sum of $3,500 as compensation for services during this account period. Then that's all I would include in there, and then I'd have a blank line and say judge of the superior court, and that's my order. And then the judge can still at that point add things if they wish to, or what they will do is they will completely cross out this line right here. They will handwrite or type in any other orders, and then they will draw themselves a line down here and say judge of the superior court, and they'll sign their name. So this could change a little bit based on what the judge wants and how they wish to have you left them room. Don't leave too much room in between here and the signature, because if there is a big block here, usually the court will cross this out and then sign it. What they do that for is they don't want you to go back later and manipulate the PDF and write some kind of other things in here that they didn't agree to. So they will cross out this spare space to make sure you're not adding something in there and their name is written on it, right? You can imagine for their protection, they're not wanting a whole bunch of space. These few lines right here, yes, okay. Although they like to see their signature line along the same as the date line, but they will accept this small portion, because if you included any wording after this date, that would look weird anyway, and somebody should question it. So because that's not common. So that is it. I know that's a whole lot. I talked on and on and on and on, but I really want to give you time to ask a few quick questions if you have any. If you don't, please, if that was too much information, look at when our next class is. We go over the same materials over and over, but some of our examples will be a little bit different. Some case references I use will be different, because I'll use examples of cases I've had since the last that just come to mind. And so, are there any questions? I'm opening it up to you all.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, hun, go.
Okay, the question goes back to the, the bond account. Does that bond account have to be in an interest-bearing account?
Okay, you're thinking of something different. A bond is only an insurance, like an insurance policy. Like when you get a car, you get insurance, right, on that car. But that doesn't mean, even though the car is insured for $1 million, you're not getting cash of $1 million, honey. So a bond is only a piece of paper.
Okay, let me correct that. I meant to say the block account.
Okay.
So
the blocked account must be an interest bearing also.
Okay.
But it's blocked.
Yes.
Meaning you can't touch it. But yes.
Okay. I had it turned around. My notes was.
It's all good, sweetheart. I just need to make sure I'm like, a bond? That's like an insurance. Wait, it's not giving you anything.
Yeah, I meant to say the block account. Okay.
It's all good, honey. It's all good. Any other questions?
No, that'll be it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else? Did you like the class? Did you learn from the class? Did you, come on, give me some type of feedback.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. This is great.
Okay. Again, you may not get it the first time. I promise you, it's okay. This is a lot of material. So if you come back and you need to take it a second time, or, maybe there's some time that lapses between when you have to do your first account and your second account's due, and you forget things and you go, oh, I need a little refresher, right? Or something. come back, take it again. It's free. It's just a few hours of time, and you might pick up additional information. You might, not. You're allowed to come back as much as you want. Um, it's going to be a challenge. I'm not saying it's not. It's one of the hardest things you have to do. But once you get it and once you realize the information you need for it, it all starts making sense of how you put it together and how you look at it. And there was one, and I think, Vicky, are you the one that you were more reviewing an accounting and not necessarily having to do one, or was that Betty?
Vicky.
Vicky, sweetheart. So now that you saw what should be within the accounting you received, has that helped you understand, gain clarity, or has it drawn more objections that you may have?
It's drawn more objections that I may have. And I noticed I was looking, I didn't see your contact information in the chat, like Rex's. Were you meaning to share that?
It was the first one, so it could have happened right before you actually logged in.
Maybe. Okay.
But I just posted it again.
Okay. Well,
And
thank you.
I will
No, this is very
give
helpful. Thank you.
my phone number. Oh, geez. So I work independently of Rex. I do extremely high-end accountings most of the time. I've also been to court a couple of times where I've had to testify about my accountings. I've been to court where an attorney hired me to review somebody else's accountings, and I had major objections to it. So I went in front of the court kind of as an expert to state all the things that I found that I believed were incorrect. And I've been doing this quite some time. The only thing that I myself have a problem with is you cannot send me your accounting and say, can you tell me if it's right or wrong, or if I use the right categories? That part I cannot, because that's considered giving legal advice. But what I can tell you is it doesn't appear to balance. You may want to move this over to a different schedule that fits better, or you've included it as income and expenses, and that's why you're not balancing, or you didn't start your accounting off at the right assets at the beginning, so you're off, or things of that nature. So when you do, if you have questions, it's not, can you look at my accounting and tell me what I did wrong? I need a little bit more specific, like, looks like my receipts are off or my distributions are off, and I'm not sure what part or what. It might look confused. Can you just glance at it and see if I'm on the right track? Or I will ask you questions like, why would you, if you wrote a check, which is a distribution or an expense, why would you have that check in as a receipt? And that is I'm not telling you anything. I'm asking why. And so that would be more your cue as to, oh, it's not supposed to go there. It should be in receipts, right? But that's the way you have to work around how I can help and how I can assist. I just cannot look at your accounting and go, oh, yeah, it's perfect. Or, this is wrong or that's wrong. But otherwise, if you need assistance, you cannot balance. You can't for the life of you figure out why. Typically, I can attempt to assist, or if you get frustrated and you just don't want to do it. It's not worth your time, energy, because it is a lot of time and a lot of energy. And maybe you want to hire somebody else, whether it is myself, whether it's Rex's firm, whether it's you want a referral to somebody completely different that also does court accounting. We can give those referrals and say, okay, here you go. And maybe after you see somebody complete the first accounting, you go, okay, I can grab the second one because all I'm doing is watching what they did and I'm kind of duplicating it, right? So that might be helpful to you. But the hardest part is getting these submitted properly and approved properly, because a lot of people go through the court rejects the first, second, third ones. And then you get frustrated trying to figure out what you did wrong. But typically, if it's a second, third, fourth, it goes smoother. So don't get frustrated. It's a learning process. You're not expected to be a perfect person. You're not expected to be an expert. But that you're learning and you're understanding what you need to include it in it is your golden ticket. Anything else?
Sorry, I had another accounting question.
Yes, honey.
I was curious. So, after you completed the first accounting and it's approved,
Uh-huh.
do you always use the carry value when you sell non-cash assets, or if someone passes away, there's a step up in basis, do you change your starting value? Or
Okay, well, it depends, honey. So, are you talking you have a conservatorship, person's alive,
Mhm,
and you already had an inventory and appraisal, so you're maintaining your carry value throughout the
correct.
whole entire conservatorship. Then what needs to happen is you need to close the conservatorship. So you tell the court, this is my last accounting. Your last accounting will be two accountings, actually. You will go up to the date of death of the conservatee. Then you will do a second accounting from the day after the date of death to, like, say, your last bank statement, May 31st. So that will be two accountings. You'll turn that in, the court approves it, and they'll say, okay, distribute this now to a probate case, which you have to open. And then within the probate case, you get a brand new inventory and appraisal, and you're going to get up that step up in basis new carry
Oh,
value.
okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Got it? I know that's confusing to everybody else, but that's how it has to go with a conservatorship. You have to stop the conservatorship, transfer the funds over to a probate, and then your probate starts all over.
Oh, wow. I have another question. What
Yes.
about the 1031 exchange? You're doing a 1031 exchange and maybe someone passes and then the property is sold. And I think this is a tax question though, because it didn't, the IRS steps in and states.
Yeah, tax, honey, nothing
Yeah.
to do with the court.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Any others? I love the group. I hope you had a great time. I know it's 12:50. We went 48 minutes over, but it was an amazing class. You all were so fun. I loved your questions. I wish you all the rest of a great day and come back and take the class anytime.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
your
Thank
day.
you.
Okay,
Thank
hon,
you.
take care. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.